Lake processor. Do it, but like for a couple $100, the Shields is most of it. Gaming, streaming, you it's pricey.
Got too many freaking cords under my desk now. I got the A7 sitting over here shooting a side shot to deal with stuff in post, and I got the wires running under my desk, and I keep kicking them.
Can be entertaining mid-show.
Once we go live, I'm gonna shut it off. It's just for the pre-show setup. So I went through and took some still shots of everything, you know, there, and we'll go through and post and do a voice overlay and go through and here's this and here's that and here's what screwed up the last time, and seems to come up in the pre-show chat at least once a month, so we figured we'll just get it knocked out and get it over with.
Might as well. Give them something new to talk about.
Yep. Unlike my dyslexia screwing up the Wolfenstein title yesterday. I have a puppy dog and a beer glass, apparently. Wolfenstein. Come on. Try it here.
Ooh, the Patreon mailbag plays.
Yeah, we broke it out last week, and I just left it there on the rundown.
It works. Freaking hell. Pick. Oh, I see Josh.
Hey, Josh.
Hey.
How are you doing this wonderful evening?
I'm fine. How about you?
Doing great, thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Who are all these strange people?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Traders.
At least someone in chat got a chuckle out of it. I thought it was being punny. Yeah, you do have a little bit of glare in your glasses.
Yeah, I'll take care of it in a minute.
Hey, Alex.
Yeah.
That shot's real crooked.
It is?
Yeah.
What, that one or this one? That one?
No.
Oh, I'm waiting for Ryan to sit down and finish it up.
Oh. Yes, I understand the table's on an angle, but that shot is very crooked.
It will be unbalanced until he sits down.
I haven't had it.
What did you say, Ryan? I think it's pretty good.
That's not level, Alan. It's shot.
It's fine. We'll fix it when Ryan sits down.
It's not even remotely level.
There we go. Perfect.
Is that better? Here, hold on. There we go. Oh no, I lost my quarter.
Quick, do the Star Trek shaky chair.
It's as good as it was.
Dun, 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 dun.
Pull to port! Pull to port!
My eyes can adjust for parallax.
And actually, they got TVs kind of sitting off to the side, too.
Hello.
Hello.
The crooked monitor is bothering me.
I don't hear anybody.
Because no one's talking.
We're not talking to you.
Hi.
Good.
We're still mad.
Should be.
I gotta find the earbuds again.
They might be over on set B, on the sitting on the AK racing chair.
Those are the ones I have on my head.
Oh, then they're over there.
It's like, ouch, get a pair of headphones.
Elon Musk just yelled shame at a bunch of journalists.
Shame. Shame.
By criticizing him for making unrealistic targets. It's not like he's never done that before.
Don't.
Well, Tesla's down 3% after hour, or 5% after hours, so yeah.
I can't do the director's chair anymore. I said enough is enough. Lower the screen down. Jeremy, you got kind of dark.
It's just his personality.
I
It's
don't really
fine.
knows.
The color of your heart.
Session limit exceeded.
Didn't we fix that like months ago?
The IP keeps changing, so no.
Oh.
Simultaneously, yes and no.
Seriously?
Mm-hmm.
Shame.
That's spelled right? Mem resistors? Mem resistors?
Memristor.
I don't know.
We'll go with it.
Wait. Just posted a review of a Radeon RX 480.
Wait, what?
They finally got it in.
Rock, Paper, Shotgun posted a review of that. Some gaming website.
They've been waiting for it for a long time. That pre-order was a bitch.
Damn miners, I tell you.
What do young people have to do with it, Jeremy?
What's that?
What do young people have
Are
to
we
do
live?
with it?
Great.
Everything. They ruin everything.
All the things.
IRC should work now, right?
So it is. Oh, wait, no, there it is.
Ryan, how's your audio sound?
It sounds fine whenever they do speak.
All right, Alan, how's yours mic sounding?
I don't know. I wasn't talking. But now that I'm talking, I can't answer you as to how my mic sounds because I can't hear myself.
That sounds good to me.
You should only be so lucky.
So it sounds like you already had the answer to that question.
Just making sure.
Hey, remember this?
Yeah, I remember that.
The coin.
Bane of your existence.
Well, not.
Hey, it still works.
Well, it still has battery life at least.
Yeah.
It's locked, and I don't know how I would even unlock it.
I bet you have a coin account.
You don't remember your...
I have to have the app, and I have to pair it to my phones. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's still neat
Yeah.
that it even does anything in that form factor.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is it?
I think they eventually came out with
Coin.
ones that
It's a
actually do
reprogrammable
chip.
credit card.
It's
Oh,
got like a little screen on it. It just says lock on there now. But you would be able to like put, several different credit cards on it and then switch between it and then just use that one. It unfortunately came out at the time like right before
Chip and pin.
Yeah. Chip enabled cards came out. So
what could possibly go wrong with that?
Well, there's
the default quality on this YouTube stream of YouTube TV for the World Series is 720p 60.
Sports
Sweet.
field.
Sports ball.
And when I first turned it on, I was like, wow, that looks like
looks
60.
That's definitely 60.
I can't believe they don't stream in 4K. This is
So,
garbage.
is that because you have a cable TV thing already, or do you have to buy that streaming?
YouTube TV is
This
a
is
streaming
YouTube TV is
service.
Oh,
a
it's just
streaming
YouTube?
TV service.
Who has been sponsoring the World Series.
No wonder they have it.
Well, they have it because
they
it's
have
on
it.
Fox.
They have it because it's on Fox, yeah.
Alan, can you turn that mic up a little bit closer to your mouth? It keeps dropping out.
I mean, it's
I just turn it. Don't move it. Just turn it. Try that.
okie doke.
Ah, it's much better. Thank you.
I'm not getting the Razer phone because they don't like me.
Did you ask though?
Did you get into it with
I
Razor Guy?
have asked for stuff many times, and I don't
Your problem
talk
is that
lovingly about their product.
You mean
ad
Ming
nauseam.
Lang isn't
your problem
buddy?
is that your mistake is that you're not asking for 17 of them.
True. I need one phone for every member of my staff.
All the phones.
No, I don't want.
And we also will need the right to sell them on eBay.
Yeah.
The staff?
That TV is volumed again.
Is the
Again?
TV turned on?
Yes.
Okay.
I see me pointing at it.
Why is that TV even on?
Pictures of the TV taking of me taking.
You're gonna break
pictures
your
of the TV.
worthless credit card.
You could program other things into it, I guess. Other mag stripe things.
You can have your Kroger card in there.
I use my phone number for that. But
Oh wait, sorry, that's only a barcode, not a.
Did we ever decide that I could use this for like if you bought like $100 Wendy's gift card and you could just use it?
As long as it's got a stripe.
I thought there were some
yeah,
limitations
it's
to
just
it.
a mag stripe.
Might be more useful as that, like as holiday shopping season comes along and
As a
everybody
gift
gets their
card
gift
machine?
cards. Yeah, that might be useful for that. All right, everybody here and accounted for, and are we ready to go?
Yep.
Am I echoing? Am
Sound
I
good?
echoing?
Are you?
Any strange echo? Nothing? Any going?
Not
nothing?
not
anything?
on our
No?
end.
Not on our
No
end.
sound?
No, you sound lovely.
Wow, that's shocking.
Your video is
It is
lagging
shocking.
behind by like a full half second almost.
Really?
No, it always does that. It's the frame buffer between vMix and the display.
Oh.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
I don't know how you do some.
Oh, now it's bad.
I'm trying to talk.
Oh wait, that's just Josh fucking with
You're
us.
not a great ventriloquist, but it's a start.
No, I'm not.
Everybody's got to start somewhere, and for Josh, it's always the bottom.
Yep.
Wow.
All right, let's do a show or something. Here we go. 3, 2. Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 474, being recorded on November 1st, 2017. I'm Ryan Schraub.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom. And show notes.
I'm Josh Hara.
And I'm Alan Malventano.
The part of Josh is being played by a stuffed version of Josh. It's things happened, but we got him to, what do you call the people who do the stuffing of animals so that they can be
Taxidermist?
There you go,
Oh, yeah.
taxidermy. We took
Yeah.
Josh to a taxidermist, and
It's difficult to find one in Wyoming.
I bet
No,
there's a
it's
lot.
not.
I bet there's a higher concentration of taxidermy in Wyoming to people
That's where they
than
are.
there's in any other
Fortunately,
country.
it's
You
all
just- you
bad
just send-
taxidermy.
You just send all the animals. You send all the dead animals to Wyoming, and that's where they do it.
Welcome to the show, everyone. We're going to talk about computer hardware. If you listen to the audio version, welcome. Video version, you can see you have a little bit of a breakdown on our rundown there about what we're going to discuss. Quick reminder here, pcpro.com/podcast. I always say this at the end. I meant to say it at the beginning. If you are interested in any of the stories we talk about, the links, those are all included in our show notes at pcpro.com/podcast. You can find everything we discuss or mention or whatever. Show notes, pick of the week, all that stuff will be included there. All the subscription options and whatnot as well. We do record the show live on Wednesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. We are doing so right now at pcpro.com/live. You can go there. There's a chat room. You can hang out. You can watch it before we, clean it up and actually distribute it. If that's something you're into. I am also watching the World Series here. It's an exciting Game 7. I'm interested to see what happens. It's the bottom of the fifth. Houston's up 5-0. There's going to be one out here in the bottom of the fifth. So I'll keep everybody in the running. I hope that's not against. I probably would get shut down by the MLB. Is that
Yeah, because
like immediately.
unauthorized use or any kind of description
right? Descriptions
is against
of
the
this-
law.
of
Don't say the
yeah.
score.
It's a number above 0 to 0.
That's it.
Is
Now-
that pretty vague?
Now we're gonna be taken down.
All right.
Thank God.
If you go to pcpro.com/subscribe, you can get this little form here that basically is your way to have a gentle reminder about what we are doing and when and why. And you give us your name and your email address. I send you an email before we do our live streams, whether it be this podcast or any other random ones we do, which I think I have at least 2 lined up between now and the end of the year, maybe a third one as well. So those usually involve giving away hardware and prizes and whatnot. So worth signing up for that mailing list. We really only use it for that. I joke about it, but Josh does not have access to it. So we should be good. We should be good there.
should.
Have our Patreon campaign running, patreon.com/PCPer. This is your outlet to contribute to us on a recurring monthly basis. If you feel like that's something you would like to do, maybe you run an ad blocker, maybe you just think the content we produce is absolutely astounding. Maybe you think Josh is hilarious and his wit and humor should be. I'm stretching, Josh. I'm trying to find new patrons here. Should be rewarded, right? You could do that at patreon.com/PCPer. We really super appreciate it. Anybody that becomes a new patron or increases their patronage during the live stream of this, we'll have their name called out. We will mention them and thank them and all that type of good stuff. So feel free to do that during the show. In fact, we encourage it. And a couple of other things, if you're not following our YouTube channel, youtube.com/PCPer, we have posted another mailbag. It's number 15 on that list. That's 15 weeks in a row that I have talked into a microphone, much like I am doing right now.
Yeah.
But basically monologuing and interacting with questions from the YouTube channel and from our comments. It's pretty exciting stuff there, if I do say so myself. And then also we do the PCPer plays on a mostly regular basis. This week we played Wolfenstein 3D, which is, I believe that needs to be in that title in there, right? Because Wolfenstein is different than Wolfenstein 3D.
This is
Is that true?
1992.
It does, yeah.
Well, the other one wasn't just Wolfenstein either, because it was Castle Wolfenstein.
Yeah, you're right.
That's true.
You're right. And this, you get
Return
to
to
see me
Castle
get through
Wolfenstein.
like 8 or 9 levels of this game, and I'm gonna admit I was pretty good at it. And also, game design was bad back then.
What do you mean?
Like
It was state of the art back then.
yes, technically I get it. Game design was all of these doors look identical. Please go to all of the doors.
Yeah.
I
You
think
mean
the-
level design?
Game design.
Well,
Yeah,
okay.
sure. I believe the intro to this video is my line of "this door just opens to more doors," and that's pretty much the entirety of the gameplay of Wolfenstein 3D. Still great, still good
Missed the
music,
secret.
still worth watching. Yeah, I didn't get many of the secrets, so I do apologize for that. But I did get all that sweet Nazi gold all to myself. So there's that.
Belongs in a museum.
It does. Yes, right after I sell it, it'll belong in a museum. let's get into talking about some hardware. We're going to start with storage stuff. The Intel Optane SSD 900P. This is the consumer.
You locked your computer by throwing a
it's
credit card at
puffin'.
it.
How about that? Now I got it back.
Now it's back.
Right.
Yeah, we're good.
This is the Intel Optane SSD 900P. This is the consumer version of Optane storage. We first saw Optane as a caching mechanism for hard drives and SSDs and whatnot.
Yep.
That came on 16 and 32 gig sticks, essentially, if you will. This is a completely different beast. This is a
this is a
PCIe
full
add-in card.
thing.
So what's different about this from the previous thing? Is it really just capacity at this point? Is that like technically that's the only
Basically,
difference?
I mean, you get a little bit. So as far as your latency and your IOPS are actually more similar than you might think, especially at the lower Q depths, which is where we normally care about, right? You do get higher maximum numbers out of this because there's more of the crosspoint stuff
running in
on
more
there.
channels.
There's
and all
more
that stuff.
channels, yeah. Controller might actually be a tiny bit slower than what is on the Optane memory on the caching
Really?
devices, because that's a much simpler controller on those. Because it's only talking to 16 gig or 32 gig. It's not, it's not doing all of the things that this controller is doing. But we're kind of splitting hairs on like latency, if you want to, say which one's actually faster, right? But rating on these is less than 10 microseconds typical response time. Optane memory was like 7 or 9 microseconds,
which is also less than 10.
True.
Yeah. One of the things I think is worth pointing out here is that the bandwidth numbers, like the sustained read-write numbers here, are actually spec'd lower than like a 960 Pro.
Yeah.
Right? Like the 960 Pro is rated at what, 3.2 reads and 2.5 writes? Is that what it is?
Yes, doesn't
gigs per second.
Hitting those numbers is tricky.
Sure.
Yeah.
But even best Intel specs are lower than the 960 Pro, which I think might be something that people go, well, how is this so great? Why is this so...
Right, exactly.
Well, not even just why, but like, okay, well, congratulations until you release like a flop.
Yeah, well, okay.
So how do you get around that?
You have to realize what the pedigree of this product is. This is the controller from the P4800X.
Which is an enterprise part.
Which is an enterprise part. Mm-hmm. The enterprise part was designed not to have blistering, sequential throughput numbers. Mm-hmm. It was designed to have the lowest possible latency.
Okay.
Right. Realize we're coming from, flash memory devices that had latencies that were on the order of like 100 microseconds. This thing does it in a tenth of that.
Right.
Right. So you have to start really kind of like tuning the heck out of everything in that pipeline when you drop down to a tenth of the latency, right? Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you're just losing your benefit, right? If the controller was too slow or took too long to do something or whatever, right? So Intel basically tuned that controller, the one for the P4800X, to be low latency at all costs, and that even meant sacrificing the things like the higher Q depth, maximum sequential, and maximum IOPS and that stuff.
Right.
Right. They were just like, look, we want the most responsive SSD possible for enterprise. And then this is simply a version of that SSD with, granted, they're putting, the memory, the media is arranged slightly differently. There's, trying to remember, it's a 7-channel controller, not an 18-channel controller like from the NAND parts, right? Even though the layout looks the same, it's still like the same size PCB. The chip layout even looks similar between the Crosspoint and NAND.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, the point is just responsiveness, low latency at all costs. And your high Q depth numbers actually matter less when the device has such a fast response time.
Because it's
at the lower
unlikely
Q
to
depths.
get to the higher
Yeah,
Q depths.
it's already, you give it 4 things at a time. It's answered them, like more likely than not, it has answered each one of them before the next one has come in even.
Right.
So in other words, you're never even exceeding Q depth 1 for a majority of the time with something that's this fast.
Sure.
Right. So
before
so
you get
comparing
to performance
it to
results,
yeah,
I do need to point out that you get a sweet ass Star Citizen ship if you buy this.
You do.
I think this. So this is an interesting partnership between the two because like Star Citizen is one of those technological. It's one of those games where like maybe technology would be an improvement for it. And Intel kind of talked a little bit about how lower latency storage could improve that.
Yeah.
Regardless of that, I just think it's interesting that the pack in for
the
this
stock
is
photos that we got. One of them included a Star Citizen ship,
boom. Look at that.
which actually looks pretty cool as far as space game ships
Yes,
go.
like I said before, I'm disappointed that there's not like a 900p logo.
Yeah, they
somewhere on
should.
one of
They
the
really should have
wings or
put some
something.
kind of like
Disappointing there.
or even put like cross X
You can
point or
get
something.
it, but that's an extra $100.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a hat.
So what that chip actually means though is you're basically getting the game for free. It's the equivalent of getting a game for free.
Okay. Because you are.
Well,
to
I think
get-
you could argue if Star Citizen's actually a game or
Well,
not.
but the first-
you can run around and look at your ship.
They're not. I
in the
don't know
hangar.
if this is going to change, but I mean, currently they're not charging a monthly subscription
just have to
like
buy
many
stuff.
MMOs are. If you buy a ship, now you're in the game, right?
Yes, because it
You don't
gives
have
the
to-
option to do other things.
Yeah, like
maybe
you don't
lose that shit.
You don't have to keep. Well, there's
Or buy
insurance. There's
insurance.
other. Yeah, there's insurance. They said on the call that this ship is supposed to come with like lifetime insurance.
Yeah, it's got a lifetime
which
policy
is
on it.
just mind-boggling to talk about.
Get the game for
honestly.
free, and you get a ship that if is stolen or destroyed, you blow it up or whatever. It's still tied to your thing. Like you still get the ship back because
Yeah,
it's
fair
unique to
Now,
the.
how
you
can
know,
I
the stuff.
commit Star Citizen insurance fraud?
Yeah, exactly.
I give it to Alan and I ask for another ship back.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
All right. Anyway.
Anyway.
So I've been scrolling through the pictures of the card. It looks like a PCIe SSD.
Basically,
for whatever
there's
reason.
nothing like special about this, especially if you've seen teardowns of prior, Intel SSDs. It really is.
What performance page do I want to look at?
You want to go to first go to the focus of either one, like
Got it.
pick that one. Scroll down a little
did.
bit. Okay, so this is where we just show like the sequential read, sequential write speeds. Now, usually we only do burst because we've transitioned to only doing like our burst testing, which acts more like intermittent use as opposed to saturated, right? And we do that because you have a SLC caching NAND SSD. You want to see what the cache would do. You don't want to know like after you've written to it for 20 seconds straight at a speed that you couldn't get anything else from anywhere else in your system.
Right.
Like that's what it takes to saturate those things usually. So usually we only do burst. Well, I put both in there. It doesn't look like both.
It looks, they're the same. You can see a little bit of a variance like right
it's
here. But
like
yeah.
so kind of reinforcing the point, and even like the next chart is the next chart is the random performance for 4K random, same difference. So this controller really doesn't care what kind of a workload is, how sustained it is. It's really just like,
Yeah.
I don't even think it really cares about a queue like a NAND SSD does. It just does the things as fast as they come in. If they have to wait in a little bit of a line, like I don't think it spends the time or the resources to even reorder the queue.
Right.
Like a NAND SSD can actually, do what a hard drive can do also, which is to reshuffle the queue around. This doesn't behave in a way where it's even cares about any of that because it would take processing, which would take time, which would delay the other stuff it needs to do, right? It's just get everything done as fast as possible.
So what else
Okay.
I want to look at here?
Next, you can go to the just sequential and random comparison. So that's where we're showing, these two capacities versus just some other NAND stuff, right? So sequential writes, even though you have potentially higher specs from other devices,
Yep. 960
that's
Pro
not
and
what
whatnot.
that's not what happens here for writes, at least. Super fast, right? King of the hill as far as your sequential write speeds.
Right.
Then scroll down. Now you get sequential reads. This is where Samsung cleans house. Specifically 960 Pro. That's the gray line.
The gray line up top, the 960 Pro 512 gig is
It's
higher from
super
QE1
fast.
all the way up to 32.
Yep. It just takes the cake all the way across the board, right? And that's not necessarily because the 900p was slower. It's just because Samsung is faster on sequential rates.
Isn't that the
doesn't
same
make
thing?
any sense.
In other words, the 900p's read and write speeds are equal, basically. They're very close.
To each other.
Whereas the 960
Pro.
Pros is more asymmetric. Like the writes are
Yeah.
much slower than the reads.
Okay.
See what I mean?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
What you first said doesn't make any sense, but that's fine. That's fine. The second
Sorry.
part you said. So you can see like this orange line, which overlaps with the light blue line, is the 900p. So you can see even the 960 Evo eventually goes past it once you get to QD8 or something like that, right?
But that actually hurts it, like in our, because what a system will actually do when you do a sequential transfer is it kind of gives it batches of QD8s. So it's like 8 IOs go, and then it dwindles down to 1, and as soon as it runs out, the OS gives it another 8, right? Well, that means it's running in that dish.
I gotcha.
It keeps bouncing around back and forth within that dish part of the curve there. So it actually it falls short of a 900p.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, let's go to the next page. This is like the more important one. This is our client QDepth weighted.
This is one that is more representative of what a consumer cares about.
This is you're just trying to use your computer to do stuff, to do either random stuff or sequential kind of workloads. What are you gonna this translates to what you're gonna feel.
Right.
And notice that the writes for the NAND parts, the writes are only a little bit better on this, but that's because you're actually writing to a buffer when you write at a low Q depth to a NAND SSD. Because there's multiple dies.
There's DRAM on there, right?
And effectively it's more like SRAM. It's like it's a input buffer on each die, right? So whenever you write a 4K to some address, it'll go to one of the dies on the SSD, but it's acknowledged to the system as soon as it makes it to the die.
Right.
Well, it still hasn't committed to flash yet, right? So that takes much longer. That's why you get NAND parts that when you look at writes, which are the red bars on that chart,
that's orange.
When you look at those,
it's glowy though.
They're pretty close to the best that this 900p can do, right?
Yeah.
However, when you look at reads, now you're actually waiting on flash to do something before you get the data. And
it's hard to fake a read.
Yeah, you can't really fake that. You have to provide the result, right? Which means the whole chain has to be satisfied front to back. And then back again, basically.
So Alan, is there a real big asterisk to the non-Optane parts here for the write performance because they're not committed to stable storage once they're acknowledged?
I mean, I can't really call it cheating, right? The only thing you can disclaim is that you're a little bit more at risk if you had power. This is why you had power loss protection on different SSDs, right? In-flight data being protected, and you used to have capacitors, and now the in-flight data or the data protection or the power loss protection thing for SSDs nowadays is will guarantee that the metadata won't be corrupted.
Right.
In other words, you won't brick your drive by losing power in the middle of a write. We'll make sure that doesn't happen. But what they can't really guarantee is that if the data is not in the flash and you yank power, and it's just a little M.2 SSD with no capacitance, chances are that data did not make it. Whatever that write was.
So the block device is consistent, but not necessarily all those writes are going to be committed.
Yeah.
So you do have a write hole.
Yeah, there is a write hole. Yeah.
But that doesn't apply for the Optane.
As far as I understand, that acknowledgement doesn't have, it literally creates a path straight through the controller to the Optane, to the crosspoint die, right? And when that write is acknowledged, it's already written.
Okay.
Because where else is it even going to put it? Right. It's such a low latency thing. It's not like it's buffering. It's not like there's caches. The caching, there's not even DRAM on the 900p. Usually an SSD has DRAM.
On the reads on this, you're talking about the difference of 25,000 IOPS versus 100,000 IOPS.
That's a significant
4x delta.
That's a significant difference.
The question people are going to ask is, will I feel a 4x difference in performance because of that?
You have to be doing something that's purely random.
Okay.
So this test is 4K random. Okay.
So if we go down to sequential, it's okay. The story changes. I got it. Okay.
You go down to sequential, the story changes, and this you actually saw a tease of this a little bit earlier because this is just like looking at reasonable.
The writes are actually faster here than the 960 Pro.
The writes were faster.
Yeah.
Even when we looked at it before.
Yeah.
But the reads, as you would expect, faster for the 960 Pro on reads.
Yeah.
But the Evo, notice how it's basically a tie.
Sure.
Because it was kind of bouncing. It was kind of trading blows with it between QDepth 1 and 8.
Which is where the client QD stuff is
That's
left.
what it's waited for, yeah. Now, one more chart down is where this really shows. We don't usually show this chart, but because it's kind of like, a mishmash of a bunch of SSDs all fighting each other.
Yep.
But there's obviously a difference between the orange.
So there's two up top. What am I looking at? This is basically the bottom scale, if you will, is
This is
the
weighted.
difference between reads and writes.
Yeah.
And what we
Everything
notice
in
on most
between.
SSDs is that as you are writing to an SSD, the read performance of it suffers.
Well, the read performance, not so much that. If it was like, this is different. This is showing different data. What you're looking at here is for 50, say you were writing 50-50.
Yep.
So 50% reads, 50% writes, right? The read performance causes a bigger hit to the latency and to the performance compared to the writes. So
Okay.
it's able to send writes relatively quickly, but if you want to also read at the same time, the fall off is very sharp. You only toss in a little bit of reads, and it throws off all the NAND parts.
Okay.
Notice how quickly they
Yep,
fall off.
Yep.
Right.
This part right here.
Yeah. Whereas the Optane parts just climb because they have slightly better read performance than they do write performance. And there's no dish to it. There's no, it doesn't dip in the middle. It just basically is an almost horizontal line
Right.
or an almost, straight line going from the performance at the maximum writes to the performance at maximum reads. And where you're going to operate in just normal use of a system is going to be more towards the right.
Yeah. Towards that 80-90%
Yeah.
and beyond.
Yeah, like a reasonable,
side.
like the number you usually see tossed around for a typical client style like workload is 70 or 80% read, which is 3/4 of the way over on that. And that's where the two Optane drives are there's just a huge gap there, right? In
Yeah.
performance. It's pretty crazy. And then the mixed burst, which is more like a sequential read and a sort of a random write mixed. It's not at a very high QDEP. It's like QDEP 2 or something.
It is too.
It's supposed to be, this is modeled after you have a BitTorrent download or something going on in the background, right? At the same time, you're either launching applications that are kind of larger in size, like more of a sequential style read, or game level loads are actually also very similar to this, loading a couple of 100 megabytes at a time. Right, that seems reasonable for a game to load textures for the next level, right?
Yeah.
And usually games have that stuff in packaged format, so the storage only sees really a sequential read. Okay. As soon as you added that little bit of a background write, which is the only the equivalent of like 20 megabytes per second,
Right.
which is nothing compared
Correct.
to what these things can do. That was enough for the Optane drives to climb well past the 960
interesting.
Pro, right? So 960 Pro gets tripped up because its flash is busy trying to do writes. Even though it wasn't that many writes. So that impacts the read performance. And then your read service time is where it shows you, okay, this is more like what you're gonna feel. If you have some load on your system and you're doing these kinds of things, that's you gotta scroll down a little more.
Oh.
Yeah. Notice I put a SSD 750 in this chart.
Which is Intel's previous.
Which is their expensive
Yeah.
enterprise-based NAND SSD that they made for client, right? To get through this test, it takes it's 20 seconds worth of reading
Instead of 3.4.
instead of 3.4.
Yeah. That's a big difference.
Yeah.
So, leaving some of this behind, we don't need to go into trim speeds or the rate testing and that type of stuff. But if we look at this, it's cost-wise, it's high, right? So this is it's the 480 gig. It's available at 480 and 280, which is a little bit odd. But the 480 is $600,
Yep.
right? So it's $1.25 a gig. It's significantly more expensive than a 960 Pro is.
It is. However, it's like what does that work out to, like 2x?
Yeah.
Roughly.
Yeah, about.
Right?
Yeah.
You're talking about something that has like a fraction of the latency, though. In
Sure.
other words, for what it is, if your workload, if the things you're doing with your system, if you're really hard on your storage, it's probably worth more than 2x the money to you. If your storage was your bottleneck, even with a 960 Pro, right? This offers a substantial increase in performance.
And we've seen it in some other outlets, a significant workstation advantage to these types of things too.
Yes.
That do see more specific storage based throttle or bottlenecks, I guess I would say, for it.
Yeah. And the other part, which actually is right there, that chart.
Yeah.
there was, I think it was like the Factorio developer a couple months back had a blog where they were complaining that like, hey, we're actually hitting the endurance limits of
Right,
our drive because we're
SSDs.
doing these compiles,
Yep.
right? Well, look at those endurance figures. So this is something that developer would probably look at if it was only 2x the cost of the NAND thing.
True.
But if they're worried about burning out, wearing out their drive, well, you're probably not going to wear that out anytime soon because that's like 20 times higher number than the
Interesting.
960 Pro.
When will I
endurance?
see a higher capacity than this?
I think they plan to do like 960 and up. I think it's just a matter of, you run into that thing where that SSD would be over $1,000, and that's that kind of barrier where like it's the
Right.
reason you don't see so many 4 terabyte SATA SSDs on the market and all these other people want the really high capacity, but when you just have a really high dollar amount on a computer thing,
Will this make NAND SSDs 10 cents a gig?
no, it might help push it down a little.
All right.
In the long run, but I mean, this is not gonna it's not meant to be a replacement.
Yeah, no, I
for
know.
NAND.
Yeah, I'm with you.
In this case, it kind of is because it's a client, like a consumer
It's a
SSD,
client PCI SSD.
where you would potentially just have your
Yeah.
system with only that SSD installed. Sure,
All right.
in that respect, it's a replacement. But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, like I could see down the road where you'd have like Intel's next like NAND client SSD, like if they made a successor to the 750.
Mhm.
I wouldn't be surprised to see a die or two of Crosspoint on there, acting as a cache.
It'd be interesting.
Then you can go all the way out to just make a TLC drive. Don't worry about an SLC cache. Just use a Crosspoint cache,
Yeah.
right?
Would that? Well, we can figure that out when we get to that point.
It would be
It'd
better.
be cheaper. It
Um,
wouldn't be cheaper.
it'd probably be about the same cost, but the
Okay.
performance would be amazing, especially if it was aggressively caching your random stuff in the Crosspoint, right?
Mm.
But
Well, if you guys want to know more on that, Alan's full review is still up there. Still, it will always be up there forever
Well, yeah.
into infinitum at pcpro.com. Check that out. But we've talked about it for a long time. So let's move on and talk about some other stuff. Oh, wait, here's editor's choice for that. It's expensive, but in terms of like top level consumer performance, hard to
yeah,
beat.
you're getting
Actually, not hard to beat, impossible.
the IOPS and the maximum throughput specs of this product are the same as an enterprise product that Intel makes that costs like 5 times as much money.
Don't tell the enterprise that.
Well, the enterprise part is rated even higher endurance.
It's rated,
Well, no, I mean it will do.
but do you think it's actually going to differ?
I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
Isn't that
it's,
basically a warranty kind of thing?
Yeah.
it's more along the lines of warranty. And then when you hit the max counter on the client or the enterprise side, the drive goes read only.
Oh, so
Wait,
it's
really?
It's a
Yeah,
hard
it's supposed
cut.
to go read only. When it
That's-
runs out of spares,
That's
when it's at its end and it can't do anything else, if you wrote and there was more bad, then it has to do something in that case, right? So it basically is like, okay, now I'm read only. Somebody
but
said it goes read only, and then after you reboot, it's bricked. It's not. It's just an OS can't enumerate a read only device properly.
So you have to
Like-
put it in another system to do it.
no, you just have to have your system, like you have to read it with something like not Windows. You have to read it with something that can like mount a thing that's read only that it expects to be
Right.
read and writable.
What I'm
right?
saying, if you had a bootable OS on it, you could not boot off of it anymore.
Yeah, that wouldn't
You
work.
would have to put it into another system.
yeah,
to
it's a
read the
secondary
data off of
drive,
it. Yeah,
and then you just like
Gotcha.
recover your data off of it, right? But you
All
know.
right. That's enough 900p. We've touched on that enough. Let's look at some other things. We'll run through these a little bit quicker, a lot bit quicker. Jim posted a part 1 of our ultimate cord cutting guide. And in this case, we're talking about television and cable cords, not anything else that you might be wondering about. And this is part 1 of a multi-part where we kind of dive into this one. Jim dives into the options and positives and negatives, pros and cons of each. Do you care about 4K, HDR, surround sound, all that type of stuff? And then we'll go into implementing it and then kind of a longer term usage report on it. We dive through devices. We talk about the HTPC, which I'll mention at the end. We talk about NVIDIA Shield, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Roku is in here. It's interesting as we look at all these different devices, they have a lot of different characteristics. The Shield it feels like it's been around forever now, right? But it still has probably the best specs of all these out there in terms of content support and like capabilities, right? So you get the 4K HDR, you get other things that you won't get on any other device. You know, if you do game streaming, you can use, what is it, GeForce Now, or you can do, what do they call it when it's just in-home streaming? It's is it just game stream, NVIDIA game stream?
Yeah.
Like if you have a PC on your network that has a GeForce graphics card, you can stream to your TV that way. That works really well. They've implemented Google Assistant on the Shield TV, so you can use the remote or the controller. You can say, you know, okay, Google on that, and my phone's gonna wake up, and what's gonna happen?
It totally did.
I was mentally trying to think of what else do I say. Do I just say, you say the key term, and it will
Just
wake
let
up?
it go.
Say,
Just let it
okay,
go.
Google.
Okay, Google.
Oh, it worked.
Uh,
Everyone's Google Home's going on. Alexa, Alexa, Alexa. There we go.
Sorry, sorry guys, sorry.
Oh no, it did. It worked.
Apple TV is actually a much better device now than it was. Now that it has 4K support, and their media collection is obviously very robust. Amazon's is actually pretty good too, and Roku. All these are actually pretty good options. We settled on the Shield mostly because it kind of has the best of all of those types of things. And then Jim dives down into the problems that you have as a cord cutter. How do you get your live TV? How do you get your on-demand stuff? We run through live TV subscription services like PlayStation Vue and DirecTV Now, Sling TV, YouTube TV, which is now rolled out. From the time we started this project, I think YouTube TV was just launching and it only supported 15. No, it only had YouTube TV only launches in the areas where it has all of the locals, right?
Yeah, they launched in like 3
So,
markets.
yeah, launched in 3 and then went up to 15. Now they're up to like 50.
Yeah.
Cincinnati area that we live in is actually one of them now. So like the World Series I'm watching on my laptop is through YouTube TV on Fox because I don't have like an MLB thing because I'm not a crazy person. So it's actually a more interesting option now. The PlayStation Vue is like this really weird thing that it's somehow the best live TV service made by Sony with a PlayStation brand on it. It has the best like DVR capability. It's cost effective. You can use it on up to 5 devices at the same time. It's again, and it happens to be one where in this market it has all of the major locals: Fox, NBC, ABC, CBS. And it has, so since we kind of decided that we were going to use Shield TV for this project, we're on Android TV. There's no DirecTV Now app for Android TV. And what's the other one that there's no, what's the other one, Jim? The other one that doesn't have a Hulu TV. And YouTube TV was on that list, but now YouTube TV is coming to the Shield that they've announced. So that's what it is. We talked about OTA support, right? The Shield has support for HD Home Run, which allows you to have like its little network box that attaches to your antenna that then gets you OTA if you want. But if you get one of these live TV streaming services that has all of your locals, you don't have to worry about it as much, right?
And Shield has support for Google TV?
Apple TV or YouTube TV.
Or sorry, yeah,
Yeah, it does. Well, I don't know if it does today, but
think
it's
it was supposed
coming
to
in
be
the
this
next
week.
couple of weeks. They've
It'll
announced that
probably
it's
be
coming.
soon. Yeah.
It's coming to it.
And it already does. I mean, Shield does a lot of stuff. It already does Plex. It already does.
Right. And yeah, exactly. We talk about on-demand content. Plex is kind of our go-to for that. We use that in the office a lot. If you have a lot of content already or you're getting your content through other means, Plex is kind of this great way to categorize and access all that type of stuff. And if you do decide you don't want a TV service like PlayStation Vue or whatever, you don't want to pay for that, you're okay with just the OTA, then the Plex updates recently allow you to support playing back live TV in that and doing DVR and scheduling and all that stuff through it. And then once you DVR to your Plex server, it's now accessible to everybody who shares your Plex server. It's like a normal piece of content that would have been downloaded and shared into your Plex server. The Shield TV has the ability to both act as a Plex server and as a Plex client. Right, so if you don't want to have an external box in your machine and you're not worried about transcoding for lots of different people or whatever, you can hook up a NAS if you have a network attached storage and you just want the Shield to you point to it and save content there and access content there. You can do that. You can do a USB drive attached to it, which is actually pretty cool.
I wonder how much it can handle, like doing that.
In terms of transcode,
they have stats on that on their support pages. It's a surprising amount because it's all hardware, GPU accelerated on this. Whereas as kind of a beta feature for the desktop clients. So it's actually a surprising amount.
Yeah. So Jim does a good job of kind of summarizing all that, what we decided to go with. The truth is, this is a project that I have been wanting to do myself for a long time, never found time to do it. Pushed it upon Jim, said, please save me on this. Because I have this 4K HDR LG
Dusty.
TV that's been
Last
sitting over
year's
here
L-
forever.
LG
And I had told
TV.
myself I wasn't going to install it at my house until I had this cord cut configuration with HDR support and all this type of stuff, right? And so now that we have our roadmap in place, I'm ready to start changing the furniture out at the house to support the new TV. So part 2 will be up relatively soon. This will be kind of just setting it up and configuring it, like what the logistics are of setting up an HD home run or configuring it to work with your TV. How do you verify that HDR is working? All those types of things. Where can you get HDR content from? So I'm looking forward to this, and I think this is something that every month I get my bill from Cincinnati Bell where I'm paying $140 for TV. I go,
I know,
damn
right?
it, that's another $140 I'm spending if
You could have bought that TV just.
I've subsidized that TV out for sure.
Yeah.
Because of it. So that's our ultimate cord cutting guide, part 1, 2, and 3 coming eventually, sooner rather than later. We'll see. And Ken wrote up this story. Is interesting. So the 8th generation mobile quad core processor, something we've talked about many times on this show. These are the Kaby Lake Refresh, which is essentially taking a dual core, making it a quad core with hyper-threading support, still inside these 15-watt thermal envelopes. We happen to have 2 of them in. We had an HP Spectre 15-inch. Was it a Spectre? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or was it an Envy? Spectre.
I can't remember anymore.
It's one of those. It's an HP Spectre X360 and the Asus ZenBook 3 UX490 UA.
ZenBook 3 Deluxe UX
ZenBook 3,
490
whatever.
UA.
They have the same processor, actually. The Spectre has an MX150, kind of similar specs other than that, right? One has a 4K screen and one has a 1080p screen, but 512 gig NVMe drives, Thunderbolt 3, all the type of stuff. What was our kind of takeaway from this? What was interesting, Ken?
So kind of the initial thing we did is getting these products in hand. We were interested about performance, of course. So we ran through the normal suite of CPU benchmarks that we normally do that I do for my notebook reviews.
Yep.
We're looking at Cinebench right now. You can see an impressive gain over the dual core 7th gen parts.
Yeah, so that's the ThinkPad
essentially
X1
double.
score on the bottom. The orange bar is a multi-thread. And yeah.
Almost double in the multi-threaded test, which is about what you'd expect. And here you can see that the ZenBook 3 Deluxe is edging out a little bit. If you go to, I think Handbrake is probably the next test, you see a different story. So you see that the Spectre is way ahead of everyone. This is a test where it's in time. So the lower the bar is, the shorter the bar is, the
lower
better
is better
the score.
Yeah.
And you can see that the ZenBook is way closer to the dual-core laptop. So this started to get us thinking about some potential reasons for this. If you think about these 2 laptops, the ZenBook is a very, very thin and light 13-inch design, whereas the Spectre is a 15-inch design, and it's beefier. I mean, it's still to be
thin,
considered a thin and light
considered
ultrabook.
thin and light, yeah.
But the ZenBook is like the MacBook Air type form factor. So
yep. So it was interesting because we saw that, and you're basically looking at the difference between a short burst multi-threaded test and a long form multi-threaded test.
Mm-hmm.
And as you went in there and found this, you kind of dove into the X264 benchmark, and we did multiple runs. And what are we looking at here? This shows the degradation in performance on the ZenBook 3 versus the HP Spectre X360, right?
Yeah, so if you look at it, the ZenBook 3 wins in the initial run, which so X264 is broken into 2 passes. There's pass 1 and pass 2. Pass 1 is the less intensive. So the test starts, pass 1, the ZenBook 3 wins. And then if you scroll down, you look at the pass 2 results, it's losing, and it just continues to lose throughout iterations.
Yeah.
So we started tracking temperatures and clock speeds.
Yeah, this is pretty interesting, right? Because if you think about it, these are the same processors in both of these systems. And the result in pass 1 is that the ZenBook 3 is faster, but not by a huge margin, but by a small margin. And we wouldn't really think anything of that except that the iterations 2, 3, and 4 are much, much lower. So when we look at this in terms of clock speed, and it's kind of hard to see, maybe if I click on this, we'll see if it gets any better to see. Yeah, if you look at the beginning of this test, this is frequency. They all kind of hit this 4 gigahertz mark at the top. Instantaneously, you know, for looks like 10 seconds maybe or something like that. And then they jump down because we've hit a thermal limit, we've hit a voltage limit, you know, the CPU is starting to heat up. But what you'll see is the blue line that is the ZenBook is staying higher for, what do you think that is? 100 seconds, 80 seconds longer or something like that?
It was something like that.
Than the Spectre, right? Which is what gets it through that first pass of X264 the first time.
Yeah, and if you look at the shape of this chart, you can tell pass 1 and pass 2 essentially.
Yeah. Yep. So this is the 4 passes.
Every time it has a hump
test.
is when it switches.
Yeah. And so what you'll see here now is that as we get into a longer test, the orange line, it has some variance to it, right? It's not a perfectly smooth result, but it's way more consistent than the ZenBook.
And consistently higher than the ZenBook.
And consistently higher, right? Like, so you see these spikes down a lot into the under 2 gigahertz range on the ZenBook.
So you're looking at
pretty interesting.
tortoise in the hare.
Not really.
Yeah, I mean, kind of, right? So the longer the test, the better the HP Spectre is going to look.
Yep.
In this particular case, yes. And when you look at the CPU temperature, you see the same type of thing, right? So again, the blue is the ZenBook, and it spikes up to 100C real quick. And you can see that this matches up well with the other CPU frequency data we saw, where it has to drop.
I'm surprised it cycles the fans like that.
Now it's this. Yeah, and it did that, and you could tell it was cycling fans.
Yeah.
Oh no, fans on the ZenBook stayed constant.
Did they?
So it's like the thermal solution was catching up, and then it was
it was like going further.
With the fans running at the
fans
same
are going
speed?
full tilt.
Huh.
And I mean, if you think about gaps, and like it takes a couple
if you
seconds
look,
before
the
it goes into
frequency-
pass 2 and before it goes into
It's
the
just
next.
weird that it has
into-
that much like hysteresis to it or whatever. Like some mechanism in there was obviously hunting.
Meanwhile, the Spectre seems very consistent, right? Like it's going up a little bit, but it seems like they have that ramp down differently. If you look at CPU power in terms of watts, you'll see this as well. So actually, in that thinner, lighter form factor, the Asus is using quite a bit more power initially for that first 100 seconds, right? And then it all kind of stabilizes out, but you'll see that the blue here behind the orange, that it has to drop power draw quite a bit. And this is where you'll see the power draw matching the temperature graph that we just showed, right? So
So it seems like that thermal graph is not due to the actual thermal system. It's due to the wattage being cut back.
yeah. That's why the fan speed staying constant
Okay.
is a thing. So
Kind of the moral of the story is when you're getting into form factors this drastic, notebook CPUs, just because they're the same model, aren't necessarily the same performance. And that has been expounded in the past couple of years with Intel giving such control over OEMs to configure the TDPs of these processors and how they behave. Obviously, Asus knew that they were going to run into a thermal limit with the design at full tilt, so they made they tuned the processors to be way more aggressive to get things done quickly and go back to idle, which for a lot of tasks, like we didn't show it, but if you look at our PC benchmarks, it did pretty well because that's a lot of not running at 100%. It's a lot of like word processing and then close that and open video chat.
Yep.
So it's all about the workload you're doing. If you want to encode video, don't buy the
ZenBook.
Don't buy the ZenBook.
Yeah.
Buy the Spectre. But if you're just kind of looking for a laptop with a little bit better performance than a traditional Ultrabook and in a really nice form factor, I actually really like the ZenBook. It's a great option.
Yeah. It's super interesting because the more we add cores to these types of things, the more you add GPU to it, right? As we get closer to Raven Ridge, like all these things are going to matter.
Yep.
When it comes out, because when you have this, like there's no magic to the physics, right? You have 15 watts. That's all you can do, right? Ask these phone guys who have been making phone chips for 2 decades about what it's like to have to deal with 2 watts and have to get all this stuff done. Sometimes you have to make these sacrifices. And I actually think Asus probably made the right decision for their form factor, right? The likelihood of somebody wanting to do long-term transcoding or very long-term CPU tasks
that's not what
is going to be low.
That's not what that system's for.
But on the other hand,
Honestly.
by configuring it the way they did, they're able to get much better short-term burst performance, right? So I still think Asus probably made the right decision, but HP's is probably more in line with what Intel expected people
And
do
I
with
mean,
this
there's
platform.
not necessarily anything that says that HP couldn't have done the same bursty stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I mean, they have a better thermal solution because they have
Yeah.
more area. They have probably bigger fans. Haven't taken these laptops
Yep.
apart, but there's just more area to dissipate the heat. So they
Yeah.
could have done something like that. It just didn't seem as necessary.
Yeah.
I guess.
It's pretty interesting. We have in-house now some other Acer laptops we're going to look
We have
at.
identical Acer laptops.
Identical Acer laptops, one that has a 2-core, one that has a 4-core, one that has a 4-core plus an MX150, which I think gives us a unique opportunity to kind of look at
Actual
power,
proper
thermals, performance.
comparisons.
Yeah, it's so rare to be able to find systems, and the chances are, like from the 7th gen to the 8th gen, they're not exactly the same
Yeah.
internally. Like we're going to take them apart and look, but they're going to. It's as close as we're ever going to get, right? Without designing
Without
these
being
products
Intel.
or going to Dell. Yeah, making our own reference systems, whatever have you. So we'll see about that.
Got
So that,
any Ryzen's yet?
no, I don't. I'm disappointed in that. It is November. We'll see. They told me like on sale dates mid-November. So I don't know if that means I'm going to get some before or we have to wait for on sale dates. But
Winter is coming.
yeah, we'll see.
So are you going to make Ken test these outside from now on, now that the
Yeah,
Winter has
temperature is
come.
dropping?
Yeah, throttle's way less outside.
over an AC duct or outside in the cold.
Just
only.
lay it in the snow, see if it throttles.
That's where I
then.
do all my crypto mining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where I do all my phone testing too, is over an AC duct. All right, let's run through these things quick. This has been a long time. This has been a long. It's Alan's fault.
Sorry.
GTX 1070 Ti. So here's the secret. The review's launch tomorrow morning as we record this. So I really can't talk to you about my review, but they announced it last week.
Let me
Here-
guess, it's faster than a 1070 and slower than a 1080.
Yes, but probably not by the amounts that you were thinking.
Oh, okay.
Right. So here's the odd thing, right? I've been writing my review, so a lot of this is just going to come out. So sorry about embargoes, whatever. The 1070 is $399. The 1080 is $499. Not a lot of space there.
Yep.
We're going to put a new card. Guess how much it's going to cost?
Then the middle one.
$450. Right.
Okay.
So there you go. But if you look at the specs, it's surprisingly fast. Like it's only one SM unit less than a GTX 1080. Right. It has
Yep.
2432 CUDA cores compared to 2560 of the 1080, but compared to 1920 of the 1070. So way higher on the CUDA core count. The clock speeds are actually closer to the 1080. Your texture units drop, but they're closer to 1080. You get 8 gigs of memory, but it's running at the GTX 1070 rates and speeds and all that. It's GDDR5, not 5X.
Mm-hmm.
It's 8 gigabits per second instead of 10. Same 256 gigabytes per second rating, but it has the 180 watt TDP rating of the 1080. Right? So it's this weird mix between them. And if you look at ratings, there's very little like peak compute rating difference between them.
It's weird that the TDP is all the way at the 1080 figure.
You look at it this way, what they're probably doing is a little bit of flexibility of yield,
Yeah.
right? So these ones are maybe a little bit less efficient, but whatever,
Mhm.
you know. The other interesting
Can I ask
Yeah,
you
yeah.
a rather personal question?
always.
Okay, scroll up a little bit. Where in the hell can I find a GTX 1070 at $349?
That's a good question. The answer
I
is
don't
nowhere.
know. Yeah, let me check this. No, not here on this side.
So the price is closer to the 1080. Most of the specs are closer to the 1080.
Yeah. So what would you expect performance to do?
Probably closer to the
Probably gonna be
1080.
closer to 1080, right? Which leads to the interesting part, right? So EVGA sent us, PDF docs of all of their systems they were launching. They're only going to launch 4 different 1070 Ti's. But what they're not doing this time is all the clock speeds are the same, right? They're all running at reference Founders Edition, whatever clock speeds. And the reason is, nobody will confirm this from NVIDIA or their partners, but that it's very likely that if a 1070 Ti FTW2 card came out with it pre-overclocked out of the box,
It'd probably be a higher
it would perform better than a reference 1080.
1080. Yeah.
And that just is like a quagmire of crap they don't want to get into, right? You know?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Because they're basically releasing a product that's trying to squeeze into this space that has one purpose, which is to totally destroy and murderate the Vega cards, right? Like that's its goal. It wants to
Because that's
destroy the
basically
Vega 56 and
that's
the Vega
the price
64.
point of those, right? Like, is that what are they matching the
I think
price point?
technically it's supposed to be $399 and $499 as well for the Vegas.
Okay.
But whatever, your mileage is going to vary on that, right?
Yeah.
So, the term gets thrown around a lot that this is the reactionary products. Is this a reactionary product? Yeah, probably. Like they could have done this at any point.
I do still have
Yeah,
a
but they've
beef.
never done a 70 Ti before.
Right. And the timing is not coincidental, you know, all that type of
I
stuff.
do still have a beef with the one EVGA product where they chose to stick with their super clocked.
It doesn't. We've had this
I
discussion and
know.
you're wrong.
I'm
You're
still,
wrong.
It still rubs me the wrong way. You can't call. Why would you call it super clocked when it's
It's not called super clock. What's that say on that screen?
SC. Super clocked
What's FTW stand for?
for the win.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Sure they just didn't pick some words?
No.
Or some
'Cause
letters?
they spell it out on
Fuck
the
the
box.
world.
It literally is called
Yeah.
super clocked. Like,
I always like their SSC, super clock.
yeah, that's see.
I'm just telling you that you're wrong.
Like, so if they chose to make an SSC version of this, well, what is it? Is it clocked higher than the SC, which is clocked higher than the base model? No,
In a normal release, that would be the case.
but not
you-
this one.
On this one, NVIDIA decided to not let vendors overclock out of the box.
This
know.
is such
My
an unimportant launch that,
It is.
that EVGA is not going to retool their entire product line.
Yeah, exactly.
They did find and replace 10.7, or they just added
They
a TI.
basically did. Those are the same naming conventions on
Yeah,
all the other
for all
things.
And
their
they've
other
done it for
cards.
several generations. So
Yeah.
why
It's just
screw
that,
it up
it's just
now?
that now it doesn't correlate to any clock difference, which is
Correct.
You know,
All it correlates to is a cooler difference.
Yeah.
Now at this point, all right, and a better cooler will mean you get better sustained clock speeds and all that type of stuff. And again, it's under embargo, so I can't tell you about the review. But the general story is that this is going to perform really close to a 1080 in a lot of instances.
Yeah.
And it all comes down to what is the availability going
you
to be
didn't have
like?
to do any testing to say that.
Well, I did do a lot of testing.
I know,
to say
but you
that.
didn't
Ken did a
have
lot
to
of testing.
say what you're saying so far. Like,
Yeah, but it does exactly what you think it would do. Like that should
Yeah.
I should literally post that in the review. It should just say it's exactly what you think it is.
The end. There's no pictures.
No pictures, no graphs, no
nothing.
nothing.
If only Vine was still around, you could just do that
Yeah.
and embed it.
Are you gonna have your Dennis Green moment?
I don't know.
Oh, the chat
They
just nailed
are
it.
who they thought we
see,
are.
The SC and the 1070 Ti's stands for stock clocked.
Yeah. And the
Yeah, there you go.
FTW is I don't know.
It's still
something
for the
else.
win. It's fine.
Yeah, still better cool. Like think if you're EVGA, you have a hybrid liquid cooled version of this card coming out that's running at the same clocks as the one you're selling.
You're gonna spend all that extra money on the cooler and everything else.
But the truth of the matter is, people who are spending extra for those cards are more than likely doing their own overclocking.
I know.
And you still have, and I want to make that point. Like you still have the availability, the capability to do your own overclocking. You can still run Precision X, OC, and you can do all the overclocking that way.
Yeah.
And in fact, the new version of XOC actually asks you when you first install it, if you have a 1070 Ti, hey, do you want to do an overclock real fast? And it like automates a thing, right? So
It's
they're
like-
they're
just getting it out of the way early.
They're like, look, we know NVIDIA screwed us up on this.
Do you want
one,
us to
so
put this
do
card where it should have been when we sold it?
That's
to
exactly what it is.
You? Like,
Again, I
we'll
don't know
just
if
put
this
it
is
at
an
that
embargo,
number.
but like EVGA tells me, this is basically meant to get people to the FTW clocks that we would have put on there anyway,
That's pretty funny.
right? So
Yeah.
So there'll be a special version of Afterburner that comes with it that just has a button that says 1080 on it.
yeah, they're
You
mean,
click it, and
if
there
That's
you
been
go.
in motherboard BIOSes for years.
I'm surprised somebody hasn't done that. There's like a hardware switch that's like OC, and it does exactly what it would have done normally. But
Yeah.
so if you want to read the review, it'll be up tomorrow. It's a really good card. That's, if you can find it priced $50 less than a 1080, makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
If you can't, we're in the same damn story we've been at for weeks in terms of GPU availability.
I mean, the
So-
performance per dollar at the base prices is better for the 1070 Ti. Like the performance per
it's
money.
gonna be. I mean, it's gonna be close. I mean, there are some games where it's better, or where it performs better than some other games, right?
Okay.
So, depending on, it really depends on if they're memory bound, right? Because the 1080 is 320 gigs a second, 1070 Ti and 1070 are 256 gigs a second. So if there's a memory bound case,
Yeah.
then it's gonna lean towards a 1080 a little bit more. Hey, more power to NVIDIA. This is clearly a middle finger to the Radeon group thing. Like, oh yeah, your Vega 56 was cool. It competed really well in these cases. Here's this, right?
Drops mic.
Yeah,
Basically.
Yeah, I mean, so
As long as you could buy them for the price.
we'll
that-
see. And it looks like Vega cards are priced aggressively to time with this release. Not a coincidence again. The same thing happened when Vega came out. Suddenly you could find some 1070s and some 1080s for their MSRPs. Regardless, competition good, new release is good.
Yeah.
1070 Ti, good card.
Yep.
That's the review.
Probably.
You
Probably
don't,
good
you don't have
card.
to. You don't have to show up tomorrow anymore. Sorry. All right. When I said quick, let's go through these even more quicker. Like PCIe version 4. How much faster is it, Jeremy?
Almost 2.
Almost 2.
Almost, well, overhead and such.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, 16 giga transfers are just a hair under 32 gigabytes a second. So, just about twice as good.
Any other dramatic changes?
Supposedly, it is going to allow you to exceed 300 watts. You're still only allowed 75 watt at the slot.
Yeah.
Slot.
So
Slot.
I guess 3 6-pin connectors. It seems odd, but maybe for Quadro cards and those sort of higher
let
end
AMD know.
cards, it could be a thing.
So the thing that some people were already doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
That was
But
my
now it's
dig.
official.
Is we've definitely seen this on some products.
Oh, so they say 225, so I can clearly go up to 400 now.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to have the one power supply that can handle it.
Well, no, you get 2 power supplies. Your GPU now gets a power supply.
Yeah, external power brick. Exactly.
Just put a power connector on the back of the GPU where the I/O is.
When does this come out? When do I have all my new PCIe 4.0 cards and stuff?
It's a secret.
Oh, damn.
Chad's asking, are
Yeah,
we saturating PCIe v3 yet? Well, yeah,
No.
actually.
Yeah, this
No,
is like
graphics
revision
cards.
0.9.
No, I mean,
so
it saturates it. It does it for very short periods of time, but it saturates it.
You know what's kind of cool and
When you're
interesting
transferring
What's that?
textures to the buffers and stuff.
is that at this ARM thing I went to last week, they had a whole session on ARM CPUs, SoCs, integrated PCI 4.0,
Right.
and using the new ARM C6. The thing that says CCIX.
Yep.
You could do cache coherency across PCIe 4.0. So they're expecting possibly 16 lanes of non-cache coherent PCI controller for server chips, as well as another 16 lanes of cache coherent. So that's how they're going to, increase the amount of cores on some of these server-based products that will utilize ARM cores. So it's they don't they're just kind of using off the shelf stuff, attach it with a special control over CCIX, and it just acts as another layer over PCIe 4. And yeah, with chips having 16 lanes at least, that's a lot of bandwidth in between these low power server chips. So it's going to be kind of fun, interesting to see what they do with PCIe 4.0.
Yeah, and I mean, there's SSDs that are running up against 4 lanes worth saturating.
Yes, but only 4 lanes.
But only 4 lanes. Well, the thing is, now you can stick with the 4 lanes and get double the throughput, right?
Because, lanes still equate to pin out and pin count and stuff like that when looking at like, processor integration and stuff. So being able to get more out of 4 lanes is still good.
And M.2, like M.2 will go PCIe 4.0, you're limited to 4 lanes. Like you can't fit more pins on M.2. You can't fit anymore. Like,
if you try hard enough, you probably could.
I mean, maybe, but there's just
if
not
you
enough
make
room.
them tinier.
They're pretty tiny.
More tiny.
Well, yeah.
All right, that's PCIe Gen 4. Microsoft Andromeda? What is this?
That's the bad
Andromeda
game, isn't it?
Andromeda.
It really works that into everything.
He tries.
Every game.
It actually fit that time, but
All right, what is it, Jeremy?
It's not the Courier.
No.
Because, the Courier didn't really go. It's an e-reader, but you see those little notches in the middle?
124 and 122?
Folds.
What the?
Yes. It folds.
is it a single screen that folds?
They won't tell us. So we don't know if it's 2 separate screens with
because they don't know the answer
hinge
yet.
in the middle, which
depends on what technology is.
It's a single screen.
Or if it's an actual single screen, all of a sudden this is kind of nifty.
I don't know. Folding it in half like that, that's a pretty tight.
Have you not paid attention to the demos that have been happening for years of that? Samsung has said they're going to productize.
Flexible is different than foldable, though, which I think is what Alan's getting to.
Flexible
like if
is
you
one thing.
create a 180
it's
degree.
180
Hey, guess
degrees.
what? It could be foldable like the Surface Book is foldable.
Yeah, that's true. It could have if they force it to be.
I don't think
let
you're
it-
gonna have
if they let it have a radius.
crease in the thing.
Yeah, I want it to be like a piece
They're
of sheet of
talking about
paper
it
where I
being-
put my fingernail down and I increase the hit that crease.
They're
down.
talking about it being roughly the same size as a phone when folded.
Mm.
So like, the idea is that this is something you can just fold up, put in your pocket, and wander around with. It's even going to have LTE capabilities from what the leaks have been saying. So it's more of a business phone that gives you enough space that you can actually lay it out and show people stuff and do things.
Business.
It's definitely got to be folded in half. It's just, are we going to be buying a new one every single year as the fold sort of cracks a little
All
bit?
these pixels stopped working on this crease.
Strange.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
Oh well.
And one side's a little red and one side's a little blue. I don't get it.
Jeremy also posted a news piece about the MSI Aegis 3,
Aegis.
which is a mini ITX.
It's a shield made by Zeus.
It doesn't look like a shield. It looks like a PC.
Looks like
sure does.
Isaac from Dead Space if you look at the front of it.
So this is a pre-built, right? So this is a pre-built review from the Tech Report. Easy $1,000 machine. Comes with a keyboard and a mouse in there, which is, I guess, is nice. It has a 16 gig Intel Optane cache as part of
drive.
it.
Yep.
Case.
1060 in it.
1060 Core i7
And an
7700
i7
non-K.
7700.
Yeah.
So I mean, the idea is that all you need is a monitor or your TV. You buy the thing, you plug it in, away you go. So it's sort of like that is an antenna.
It looks
that's what you hang your headsets off of.
Wait, which one is it really?
I
Can it be
want you
both?
guys to get one of these so that Ryan can take a picture of him standing on it.
That was a good picture.
Oh, it is tiny.
So this looks like the winglet on who is the Greek god or Roman god?
Hermes?
Say again.
Hermes?
Yeah, that's what it
Conrad?
reminds me of. Is there one on each side?
Yes. Yes, there is. So that you can
Nice.
hang your VR goggles on one side and your headset on
Wait,
the
are
other.
they really to hang stuff or are they antenna?
They are to hang stuff,
Oh, okay.
unless you don't want to.
Sometimes I do. Sometimes I don't.
Yeah.
It just depends on what we're
Sadly, they're not RGB.
So that's a review over at Tech Report. You guys can check out if you're interested in that. And then this one, I don't know anything about memristors. So what is the breakthrough that you're
Those
talking
just
about
look
here,
like
Jeremy?
regular resistors.
Yeah, I'm pretty
No,
sure
they
those
have
are
a
just
memory.
regular
Find
resistors.
a sexy picture of a memristor that wasn't totally different technology.
Fair.
Because what these guys have done is go with essentially doping some organics onto metal to create a memristor. So, long story short, memristor is a lot like NAND or non-volatile RAM in that it's super fast, but it will hold the data even if you don't have any power to it. Now, there's been a couple of problems. One is it's been slow because you're switching states. So we've covered this before with other sorts of storage technology where essentially you send an electrical signal through it and it either crystallizes the storage medium or it decrystallizes it.
Mm-hmm.
Same sort of thing here. But these guys are saying that it can switch states in 30 nanoseconds or less, which ain't bad. Certainly better than a lot of the previous ones that we've seen come out. But still, there's some room for improvement.
They can hold their state for 11 and a half days without power and expected lifetime of 10 to the 12 cycles. What is the advantage of this? Why are people researching this as opposed to what we have now, NAND or whatever?
Frickin' dirt cheap.
Okay.
Because you can essentially grow these things as opposed to having to etch it out like you do current silicon. And a lot of the stuff that you use to create these are not the ridiculously rare metals that we're running out of and that have not only, poisonous runoffs, but are just sort of difficult to work in manufacturing capabilities. These are ridiculously cheap in comparison and much, much easier. Like you can do it in a much less expensive facility.
All right. I'm looking forward to having a memristor tree.
Yeah, it's like it's less effort to change its state, right? For like Crosspoint, you have to literally melt metal.
Sure.
Tiny bit of metal, but it takes like this is not that not that involved to change its state, and that 10 to the 12th endurance. Like I think
Yeah.
Crosspoint is somewhere between like 10 to the 8th and 10 to the 9th.
Oh, really? Okay.
So,
Yes.
and that already has really good endurance, right? So like
this is even better than that.
This
Okay,
is,
that's
yeah,
interesting.
way higher than that.
Alright.
So
Puts it in context.
and these
Probably-
will switch on a 1/10 of a volt.
okay, yeah. So I mean,
yeah.
it's the fact that it can't hold for that long
11
is an
days
issue.
yeah.
You need something refreshing it periodically.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's kind
don't
of an
have a power
intermediate
outage for a
memory
long
that's it's not as fast as RAM, but it's a whole lot faster than SSDs, and so they're looking at it kind of more of a more stable, fast cache that can be huge in size.
Well, 30
comparatively.
nanoseconds is you're almost at RAM speeds. And the read, that's for writes. The reads is probably as fast as you can measure a voltage across a thing with current going through it, because it's just a resistor.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just like it all depends on how fast can you sense what the resistance is, right? It's interesting.
Well, good job, Yale. I guess.
I guess.
For this. Real quick, NVIDIA released some drivers. AMD released some drivers, I think today or yesterday as well. Wolfenstein 2 drivers have come out. This one is for Call of Duty World War II, which comes out tomorrow? No, day after tomorrow. The 3rd, I think, is when that comes out, the new Call of Duty. Funny story about technology and old people. I was at a restaurant with my mom, and a commercial came on for Call of Duty World War II. Now, it was a pre-rendered cutscene commercial, and me and my nephew were there, and he pointed out, he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna get that game when it comes out, or whatever." And my mom was like, she did not believe it was a game. Like, "Oh, that's a movie, right? Is it based on that movie?" I was like, "No, Mom, that's actually a video game." And she was like blown away.
I mean,
Again, pre-rendered, so not like in-game footage, but if you look at something like Battlefront, I still think that is close to that level of
what I found funny in because Wolfenstein has like pre-rendered, like some cutscenes are pre-rendered, right? Like honestly, I think the game might look a little bit better than the pre-rendered
really?
stuff. Yeah, because they have to compress it down to include it with the game, and some of the cutscenes are kind of long, right? Like obviously
Just make everything like Half-Life 2.
like the resolution was clearly lower, right? But like before, you'd see games where they put a lot of effort into those pre-rendered things.
Oh
and
yeah,
like,
the
now,
Final Fantasies were the best example.
It wouldn't
of that.
surprise me if they made these pre-rendered cutscenes with just probably the same game engine, just they had more control over
Right, they
what
can
was
maybe
going
render it a
on.
little bit slower. They have to do it in real time, but then they
Yeah.
have to compress it and
Yeah, but if you're
Yeah.
playing it on good hardware, like
with you.
it's basically the game was like
the point is, if you're buying new games, update your damn drivers.
yeah.
These guys are doing a good job of getting that stuff implemented. This one was kind of interesting. Scott posted this. NVIDIA Volta V100s are now available for you to access through the AWS Cloud Systems, I guess. The Tesla, so they had the Tesla P100 in there already, which was yielding 10 teraflops of single precision performance. The V100 has over 14 teraflops, and he goes into some detail about the FP math that is supported on each of these. Amazon allows up to 8 of them at once with their P3 16X large instances. Has anybody looked up what those actually cost per minute
No, I forgot.
or
to.
hour? Because we could do that, like some coin mining on these guys. The thought has run through our mind.
How much do they charge you to benchmark it?
That's
what I
what
want to know.
that was what I was thinking. Is the thought has come up is, can we like fire up a Windows one and do some benchmarking and stuff on it?
Freaking 3D mark.
We could run synthetics reliably on it.
You'll get a $1,500 bill from Amazon at the end of the month, but that's cool. It's worth it.
Oh
That's
shit!
it?
I forgot to turn it off.
I mean, it probably wouldn't be that bad, but anytime we've done
We'll
like
pay you back in Bitcoin.
anytime
once
we've done,
got
like,
it. Just
coin
give us
mining
a few more
compar-
months.
anytime we've done coin mining comparisons, it's been like break even.
Oh, no,
or
no,
a
I mean,
negative.
That's back in the heyday.
yeah,
yeah.
and it doesn't make financial sense to do that kind of stuff now,
Well, but my point is,
unless
like,
you accidentally get gifted a whole bunch of hours of free server time or something like that. Then maybe you use that for that.
Yeah.
Did you find an answer yet, Ken? On the,
Almost there.
for the P3 16X large instance?
my point is, if you only need it for like a few hours, it probably wouldn't be that bad.
Probably
you know.
$20.
Yeah,
Yeah, that'd be my guess. But that may be the only time I ever get to see a Tesla.
you're wasting
V100.
more time installing Windows than running the tests.
The P3 with one V100 is $3.42 an hour.
Yeah, so there you go.
What about, is it scale linearly with 8 of them?
No, it doesn't.
How much is
Does
one
it
of the
scale
servers with 8 of them?
exponentially?
27.
$27 an hour. Well, 4 times 8 is actually less than
Yeah,
linear. Yeah.
you're getting a deal.
Yeah.
What
Well,
processor is included in that?
an ARM.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's a single core.
It's just
It's
one
fine.
core.
So how much extra would it be to ship them your frame rating rig and have the Amazon technician hook that up?
An infinite amount of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there is in Columbus is where they have.
They don't have those there.
They don't have the Tesla.
That's the
V100s in
that's the
Columbus.
availability zone I looked in first.
Where's it at?
The
Virginia.
East, U.S.
Yeah,
East.
okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's a drive.
I could go out to Virginia.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 10 hours from
Somehow
here.
I don't think there'd be game ready drivers.
Oh, that's true. Can you just install new drivers on it? No,
they
that's
don't
true.
exist.
That's true. If I go to GeForce.com, I probably can't download a Tesla V100 driver, huh?
No,
I know some people. Let me find out what I can get done here. Josh, you went to ARM TechCon was that last week? It was last week, wasn't it?
Last week. It's last week.
One of the things that we have learned about is there are other things that will be coming out as we go. One of them is the Mali D71 display processor. In a shortish time frame, what is interesting about this, and why do consumers care about what this is
Okay,
offering them?
so obviously something that people really probably don't consider very much is how images are transferred from the GPU to the screen, and for most of us, it's all just kind of pure magic. But there's a lot going on there, and this is technology that people have taken a lot of time to build up. As we're getting closer to 4K screens, and especially in VR solutions, which you're going to have 2 essentially 4K screens, you need to have the bandwidth and the ability to be able to paint those pictures. So you get a frame from the GPU, you got to paint those onto the screen, and you got to do it fast. You got to do it with low latency, and you got to do all kinds of other kind of fun things to the image to make it look correct when it gets to the screen. And so the previous generation of stuff from ARM, it was fine, but it was like 4K at 30 hertz it could do, and that's just like one screen. Well, now they've doubled the performance, but they've done some really smart things. They've really taken a good look at the workloads of this product. They have dedicated hardware that does a bunch of different things, so you can read there just some of the stuff that's in it. So it has a huge amount of throughput. It's seriously about half the size on the same process node as the previous version. So they've really done a lot of really good design work. They've really done some really interesting things to be able to get the draw throughput up and the latency down. So you can I mean they're guaranteeing 4K 120 hertz performance from this. Now, a mobile GPU is probably not going to be able to provide the frame rates necessary, the actual frames to be able to saturate this. But it's a start, and they're removing a bottleneck, and so it's going to be really interesting all it can do. I mean, it's got the Assertive Display 5, which provides all kinds of HDR support. It's just really interesting when you start digging down to see how much technology is in the background that you're not really paying attention to. And this is one of those things. So they released 3 parts, the D71, the MMU 600, which is the memory unit, I can't remember exactly the
memory management unit.
Memory management unit. And, it communicates really, really quickly with the CCIX or C6. And is tightly integrated with the Mali G70 series of GPUs. You can potentially use this with other GPU products, but it would take a lot of work. And initially, they're aiming at Android and Linux driver support, but they did not rule out any kind of Windows support in the future. So it's going to be interesting to see where this comes out. This is not going to show up until 2019, though.
Yeah, that's the kind of the issue with looking at a lot of these mobile technology announcements is that there's a longer productization tail than we see on a lot of other stuff. So pretty cool nonetheless.
Was that fast enough for you?
Yeah, no, I was impressed. It was good. And we'll have more from Josh's time at ARM TechCon coming up soon. So keep an eye out for that wonderful stuff. Last on our list, computational phase change memory. Jeremy, you posted this. I'm curious about what this is and maybe how it compares to what Alan has written about in terms of Optane stuff.
Well, in essence, it is Optane. I mean, Optane's phase change memory. Yeah. We know what that is. We know what it does. And so that's not the neat thing about this. The bizarre thing about this is that they're using phase change memory to perform simple computations with no external processor.
Huh.
They have, read through the article because it's a little bit beyond me, to be perfectly honest. But essentially what the example they gave is you take a sensor attached to a rain station, and as soon as it rains, it sends a signal, and your memory switches from a 0 to a 1. This is done across a large array of memory, and using a set pulse, they can actually read and tell you where rainfall patterns are. Oh. So it is basic computation without a processor, just purely memory.
Yeah, makes sense.
This is how I want my next relational database. Just sort of ones and zeros and phase change memory.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I guess it's already that
but
way.
You don't have an external processor to be able to handle the computation. You can do it via math just from how...
You're just storing the data directly to the, you're taking what would be a data input and you're not bothering to compute it. You're just basically just dumping it straight into the phase change memory.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's really bizarre. It's worth the read, especially if you follow through, although it's behind the Nature paywall. So, I mean, you can't get the full paper, but there's a couple of links and a guy in the comments added a couple of others. So you can read a bit more about it. It's freaking neat.
Huh. Very cool stuff. Very cool. All right, it's time to get into our hardware software picks of the week, and I don't have one.
You're a loser.
He says as
you
he
big
looks,
loser.
Who looks at the things.
You gonna pick your coin?
No, I would not recommend that to anybody.
They went out of business.
Yeah,
here, I'll let you cheat.
Sure.
I'll let you cheat. Since I didn't pick it.
Oh yeah, 900p. $599. Well, this is 280 gig variant.
That one's a 389, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
280 is an odd number. Why 280?
No, it's an even number, actually.
It's just the way that... Huh? That's... Yeah, of course. That's Ken.
Can I throw it at him?
No.
I am serving as the comment section.
We only have one of those. No, it's the way they orient the chips on the board. It's a 7-channel controller. They're trying to keep either nothing but one die packages or nothing but a group of 2 die packages. Like, so when you rearrange those, you come up with we can calculate out what the theoretical other capacities of this thing would be if we wanted to.
Yeah.
Hey,
any chance this was originally going to be called the 9000p?
No comment.
Okay. I think maybe. Looks like they erased a 0 and put a p in its place.
Probably.
They put a sticker over it down.
Is this actually for sale now? Can you buy these? Are they actually shipping for sale?
I don't know if they're.
I think Newegg had pre-orders.
Yeah, they had
They had pre-orders up for them. I'm curious to see what the adoption is. I feel like the excitement over storage tech is
something occurred to me
higher than people would have thought. Or
a demographic that would care about this occurred to me the other day.
Okay, good, great.
I was watching a speed run of a game.
Yeah.
And there are different
load times.
There are different types of speed runs, and one type of run includes all the load times.
I'll just stick it on a RAM
There's
disk.
some that you start the counter at the beginning.
Yeah.
So
whatever.
Their system performance matters.
And your system performance and your level load time matters. There was a guy that did a speed run of Cuphead, which was amazing to watch, by the way.
Oh, I bet.
Holy crap. He basically speed run Cuphead and died once.
Very impressive.
From front to back, the whole game.
Died? What
I've
bullshit
I've
speedrun?
never played the game, and I think I've died 9 times.
If you die, you start back.
You shouldn't die in a speedrun.
Well, no,
well, it's still young in the game's life, right? So,
but the point was, the timer was including all the load times.
Yeah.
because that's how they're running that game apparently.
It's
right?
expensive, but I like it.
But if you were going to pay 2x the amount on an SSD, like the load times was taking a few seconds per thing.
Yeah, but you don't know that it'll be
We
any
don't
faster
know
with the
the
Optane.
Optane.
We don't know
That
for
goes
sure,
faster,
but
that's true.
it would probably have an impact. When you're counting seconds and you're going for world records on things,
As I normally do in life.
well,
Just across most things.
yeah.
I think that's a very, 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 very small demographic.
The speed running
Two
load
guys.
time community. Yeah, that's true.
Well,
All right. Jeremy, are you first?
I can be.
What's your pick?
Tell
Tell me what it is so I think I'm on the right page.
isn't Josh supposed to be? Wait,
No, Josh is not supposed to
don't
be
follow
first.
why
the
is he
rules here.
before him?
I
in
don't
the
know.
line?
This got screwed up.
That's my fault.
Okay, there we go. Fine. Somebody has admitted
Bad
it.
person.
Jeremy, you go
Bad.
first, and now we're going to rearrange
Okay.
the show notes later.
I see. So there were some researchers that were screwing around with the usual training set of pictures for image recognition with AIs. And they figured out that on a picture with 1,024 pixels, they could switch one pixel and the damn thing couldn't tell the difference between a horse and on an automobile. This worked on 3/4 of
Wow.
all of the industry standard ones out there. A single bloody frickin' pixel.
Well, in
And
their
all of a
defense,
sudden,
they are putting a white or a black pixel in there.
Yeah, but I think the point is valid.
Yes.
Like, I see that picture of the horse with the yellow dot on its cheek, and I'm still know that's
Still
a
a
horse.
you know
horse.
it's not a car.
Yeah.
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 And so cranking that, they did it with bigger ones. So like a 280,000 pixel image, they switched 273 pixels. If on a fair-sized image, your eye isn't going to pick it up like it does on this,
So,
right? Because they don't have to be in a single cluster. They can just be in a couple of places.
So the automobile turned
you'll
into
never
an
be able to tell.
airplane by adding a white dot.
Yeah, or a
Literally
black
one
dot.
white dot.
see, now this is where the doomsdayer for like self-driving cars comes in and says, if a horse walking down the street that has a big yellow mole on its face for some reason
Is now a car.
No.
is now a
Even
car.
better, your camera, a pixel on your camera has now failed and it's hot.
Or what if you get a speck on the lens?
Or that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right now, there's all. Oh my God, I'm never gonna have a self-driving car. now.
What's really cool about this is that these guys are not just machine learning the fact that the thing can identify different things. Now they're like, oh, let's throw random pixels in there and the machine learn that. Right? So they basically told this thing to do
Yes.
this. And then they walked away for a while. And they came back and went, oh, look, like this airplane turns into a dog. And
No,
this
I
car
think this
turns
is
into a
on
dog.
the. This is
Like
this is during the recognition part, right?
I'm with you, but it's still,
Yeah, they're training.
they're training it. So they're like, oh, well, what happens
So now
if
they're telling
what
it that,
happens
hey,
if
by
we
the way,
did
dummy,
this?
that's a horse.
So not only are they machine learning the regular process of trying to identify things, but they're using machine learning to figure out, okay, well, what are the error modes for this?
right.
What are the failure modes, and how do we fix that? Because now they're gonna have to come up with what's the fix.
That frog
Right.
one is really confusing to me. The frog to truck. Like,
Even
don't
more
get-
confusing if you're
I
driving.
don't get how the stealth bomber turns from airplane into dog with one dot where it is.
behind it, yeah. I don't,
Like that makes no sense to me. None of these really make sense to
stupid
me.
computers.
It's just
God.
that something in the algorithm is just like laser focused on if there's a bright dot, right?
And this story should single-handedly destroy the AI machine learning stock market bubble that is out there.
There you
It
go.
certainly wounded it a bit.
it
and
did?
or make it extended because we're going to need way more GPUs to tell us that frog is not truck.
I don't know. That airplane, the
That's my
stealth
new
bomber looks like
slogan.
a parakeet.
Frog is not
a
truck.
little bit.
AI will not be complete until we know that frog is not truck.
Okay.
That needs to be on a shirt.
10 cents per gig. Frog is not truck.
Frog does not equal truck.
Yes.
That seems like a
Twice.
pretty easy T-shirt to make
Yeah.
as well. Actually, and before we get to the next one, we did have only one Patreon edition here. They increased their patronage from $14.99 to $15.99 a month with the name "How are the Josh Check T-shirts coming along?" Just edited their pledge.
It's a good question.
Now
Well, we got a new one for you now.
we got a new one for our designer to work into.
Frog.
Frog is
Frog
not
is
truck.
not truck.
All right, now Josh, I'm ready for you.
Me.
You
You know
do
what?
it. Yes.
I want sound cards back,
You like sound cards.
and this is a way to start.
Makes optical
Yeah.
drives and sound cards.
Whoa, look at this monster.
I'm living back in 1999. I've tested Omega stuff before,
Like the
They
watch
make very
company?
solid cards. They have good components in there. It's pretty much the same chip as what Asus has for their lineup, except it's not branded their Asus V100
It's that,
or
it's
whatever
that
the hell
C
they call it.
Media or whatever.
Yeah, it's a C. C Media 80
I like that it
something.
still has
something,
these
something,
optical
something.
audio connectors on them.
Isn't that awesome?
How else will I get my CD audio?
Exactly, but it's PCIe, man. So you're all there.
I mean, they were
baby.
smart about it. They put the digital coax like closer to the motherboard, so that's where all the noise is. So it doesn't matter because
Mhm.
it's digital, right? And then the analog stuff's further away, and
Plus, they got this blue thing down here, and that's pretty cool.
They do. I don't know what that does, but
So-
I like it.
Does this sound card require its own power connector?
No,
No,
No.
bus powered. I like it.
it's only by
You
one.
don't think about how much power the bus now
75
does. I mean,
watts.
we're not
Do
back
you get
in
75 watts to
1998.
buy one?
No, not to buy one.
Yeah,
Really?
the power connectors are all in the front section.
Yeah,
of-
because that's
of
how those
PCI.
buy one
Yeah,
extenders
that's
could
right.
work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all the rest is just data.
Yeah.
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 Finally.
Although
Very
you're,
cool.
you're not supposed to draw more than 25 if it's not a GPU.
Supposed to.
That's why SSDs are limited to 25.
It's such a stupid restriction.
Even by 4?
Yeah, doesn't matter.
By 8?
By
But
16?
by 16, you can suddenly do 75.
No,
Wait, what?
No.
You can't
What
do
if-
any
what if they
SSDs over
put-
25?
it's not per the spec. Only GPUs are allowed to violate the original 25
What if they just
watts.
solder a dead Voodoo GPU to it?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I don't see anything wrong with the drawing 75 because it's using the same pins. It's like all the same stuff. It's just that the spec says only if it's a GPU is it allowed to go past 25. That's just how it is.
Huh.
That's like componentist.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's
Anyway.
like a 5-watt card. So shut
Yeah,
your
yeah.
mouth.
Oh.
Well, I mean, 5 watts. Well, no, what is it really for like, so it's not like a
Is that
headphone amp
stage
in there?
watts or home watts?
Don't know. Don't care.
Moving
No,
on.
just-
Moving on. I'm out.
Okay.
Alan.
Upgraded the camera. RX10 Mark IV. I used to have a Mark III, so I took all my review pictures with and whatnot, right?
God, they were amazing.
But it did contrast detect focus, which was kind of a weak point of that camera because it would kind of hunt if it was in low light, and like, new cameras nowadays and SLRs and they have like phase detect, right?
Yeah, even some smartphones do that now.
Even some smartphones have
Yeah.
that now, so it's kind of like, hey, Sony, put that in your camera already. So they put that in the camera. So the focus is like,
You say put that in their camera like they don't have other cameras.
well,
They have other cameras that have.
yes,
phase
and it showed up
detect.
in like the A9
Yeah.
recently.
Like
right?
the A7S II we have is kind of bad with AF. I don't think it does face detect.
No, it
I
doesn't.
think it's contrast based.
I like how
It's
they
pretty
brag
bad.
about
the
themselves
R3
on there.
The R3 just launched, which means that there'll be an S
R3.
or what's our camera that we have at the office?
The A7S.
Yeah. So the
A7S
A7R Mark III
Yeah.
just came out. That also has phase detect pixels. So basically, they upgraded their sensor technology and they included this stuff,
Yep.
right? This model only has a 1-inch sensor, but that allows it to have a reasonably sized shape, non-interchangeable lens, but the lens goes from 24 to 600 millimeters,
Mhm.
which is pretty
That's
crazy.
the same as the last gen.
Same as the last gen, right? All the lens specific stuff is the same as last gen, but the focus is super fast now, even in like poor light, doesn't matter. And they carried over not just some of the sensor technology, but some of the the processor that's in the A9, which is a very expensive camera.
Mm-hmm.
A9's the one that like shoots continuous and doesn't black out, and like,
Yep.
it's like for sports photographers, right? That camera shoots at 20 frames per second and is able to focus in between each shot, right? This camera, since the sensor is smaller and has the same processor, shoots 24 frames per second continuous with focusing. It's crazy. It's like you're basically shooting film, right?
It's not stop motion at that point.
I don't need that.
It does that, right? And it'll
So
do.
you're saying that it is fast AF.
Yeah, exactly. And
Anyways.
and the
That's a T-shirt.
and the buffer, because they only do that for so long.
Picture of a camera.
The SD
Fast
card
AF.
can't keep up, right? But it'll shoot that, like if you're shooting JPEG, the buffer's like over 200 shots.
249 it says.
And then RAW is like, it's over 100. I don't know if you have that number, but
No, it's not on that listing right there.
Oh, it's not.
Gonna shoot a lot of 10-second videos.
You sort of could like, and the high speed, video, which we've used for some testing, for like response time for screens and whatnot, right? They basically doubled the buffer. So now what used to be, you know, only 2 seconds at high quality is now like closer to 4 and stuff like that.
Cool.
Still going to be carrying a bandolier SD cards around.
It's just like it's so now that camera has now finally evolved to the point where it's doing like all of the things, and it's all in one camera.
Okay,
you don't have
mark
to change
the time.
No, I'm just saying.
So in 5 years, I can trade a motherboard to you for this, right?
Yeah, Josh traded a motherboard to me for something in the past. One of my previous.
No, because
Sony models.
when the Mark V comes out in 11 months, he's going to pre-order that and have this one up for sale.
The only thing that's disappointing about this is there was the RX10 Mark 1 and 2 were 200 millimeter f2.8 fixed, and then they came out with the 3, which is that lens, right? Goes to 600 millimeters, yeah, but if you only zoom it to 200, you're not at f2.8. You're basically at f4.
Oh.
So in some respects, if you preferred, you know, more open lens,
And
but
you
didn't
didn't
need
care
as much
about the
zoom,
zoom.
yeah, now
Yeah.
you're stuck 2 generations behind with the Mark II camera.
I can't believe it.
So you don't get the focus pixels, you don't get any of the other,
That's
you know,
just unacceptable.
or the phase
acceptable.
detect or
I'll
whatever.
throw it in the
Yeah.
garbage. I wouldn't
I don't
even get a refund.
It's just a shame. That's what I'm saying.
Fair
You know
enough.
what's best about this all?
What's that, Josh?
It's the cameras within reach.
Oh, yeah, the camera that I traded Josh. Yeah.
Yeah, many moons ago.
That one actually makes sense to be within reach.
That's true.
Yeah,
true.
Yeah.
It is a camera.
It's not as surprising as some of the other things you pull out of drawers. Desk drawers. Desk
That's really
drawers.
good. Yeah.
All right, everybody, that's going to be it for the show for this evening. Thank you for joining us. PCPro.com/podcast is where you can go find URLs to our links that we've discussed, RSS feeds, videos, all that crap that you need is all at PCPro.com/podcast. I have crap to write, so we will be back next time. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Horace.
And I'm Alan Malentano.
Good night, everybody.
Fix your video lag, Josh.
No.
Oh God, look at the
not my
moray on
fault.
my shirt. in
Oh,
that
it's
shot.
terrible, isn't it?
Oh no, it's locked.
Yes, move.
So Josh, I was asking about the sound card because I snagged the old Zonar sitting on the shelf here from way back when and never been opened. Gave it a shot, and it didn't work. Like it just, I put it in.
It might have been dead.
Was it no, it was the one that uses floppy connector.
I was getting there,
Floppy power connector.
so I plug it in, turn on, driver loads, detects the card fine, nothing comes out. No, no audio, no optical, nothing.
I am not on the post show. Goodbye.
Bye, Ryan. And
So that was the D1 or whatever.
it was the D2X.
Or it was the okay.
Yeah. So, and then I look at actually, open up the instruction manual, which I never do. And it's like, oh yeah, you got to plug power into it. And it's like, why does a sound card need a dedicated power connector?
You want to know what's really messed up? When you have a finicky floppy power connector in the system that you're using that power card in, and the power like intermittently disconnects on you, and you have like the volume kind of up. Really bad things happen.
Bad things happen?
Yeah, bad things happen to your speakers, your ears,
Oh, geez.
everything.
Well, I mean, the optical worked great. And I generally, 99.9% of the time, I'm using the optical to my receiver in the stereo. Speakers just in stereo. And then I plugged my headphones into the card directly and went, oh, that's why it needs a dedicated power connector. It sounded amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm not one to I'm not a big audiophile or anything like that. I hate using terminology for it, but it was just, it sounded good.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing for a computer sound card.
Yeah.
Going straight to headphones. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's the card I had got the nice version of and then sold that off and downgraded to the model that didn't need the power connector.
So you didn't have to have a floppy power connector floating around?
Yeah. I think it was the D1 or it might have been, I don't know. For the longest time I had that's the D2X, isn't it?
No, what I'm showing here? No, this is the
old
old
school.
high-tech
Yeah, that's a while ago.
This is they turned into the Explosion 7.1, but this is essentially the same card as the HD Omega, except it's PCI, but it had swappable op amps. This was a great card for a long time, but it ran hot. The outputs.
Mm.
So it was kind of interesting. But yeah, they were great cards at the time. What else do I have behind me? Oh, the only non-creative card that used the X-Fi.
I'm just waiting for pull out a freaking AW32 or something.
I have 2 of
Yeah,
those
it's
sitting
the
on my
X-Fi
desk.
Prelude, and it had 64 megs of memory on board.
I remember, like, you would have to remember the SIM slots. I think the AW32 had 2 SIM slots on it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, for your wavetable expansion.
Yeah, exactly. Descent sounded amazing.
Yep.
Oh no, Ken's at the big table.
Uh-oh.
I can.
I'm here all alone and my shot's off now. Thanks, Ken.
Well,
I have
Did
I
I
have
ever
all
have
this
one of
dead
those
space.
floppy-based Sony cameras? That was the Sony Mavica.
yeah.
We had one on the submarine. Because at the time, that was the easiest way to, like, not have to, we don't really develop film on the submarine. So, and that was when that camera was like $1,000 or something.
Yeah.
They just, like,
Big money.
as soon as that came out, like, Captain authorized
the
that
analog storage to floppy.
Yeah. Yeah. And the whole, like, 15 photos you can save on the floppy or something like that. And that was
At
in, like, low
wonderful
quality in 320
Yeah.
by 200 mode or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, the Mavica. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
And the floppy drive was, like, right at your face, too, right? So you took a picture, and then you like,
hear that thing.
Yeah. Like your nose is getting tickled by the Seeks on the floppy, basically. Yes, you're allowed to take pictures on the sub, just not in the engine room. Unless you have captain's permission.
Huh.
Which I had to obtain many times.
Did you ever get any, stray alpha particles that did interesting things to the...
No.
Oh, that's...
Alphas don't make it out of the... Alphas can't pass through a sheet of paper.
Oh, okay.
So if an alpha makes it out of the reactor vessel, out of all the piping,
It's a bad thing.
out of all the insulation around it, out of the shielding of the reactor compartment, out of the bulkhead, and then hits you, yeah, you got a freaking problem. If alphas are making it that far, that means there is a crap load of alphas.
Yeah, you're probably blind at that point, and then soon
Probably.
dead. So we made a trip down to Florida last weekend, and since I don't have a smartphone anymore, I had to bring my own reading material, and I got the omnibus Heinlein science fiction stuff, and yeah, there was lots and lots and lots of talk about how bad things can go in reactors.
Yeah, the Rickover reactors have had a pretty good safety record.
They have, because you pretty much have to intentionally try to break a lot of stuff to make something bad happen. I mean, their safeties are...
the ship disintegrates around it.
Their safeties are freaking...
Or let a marine in the
Serious.
engine compartment for 30 seconds.
There's literally at least 3 of everything that can protect. If you're gonna make something so if the temperature's too high, then shut something down. There's gonna be 4 complete chains, 4 separate thermometers, 4 separate instruments reading the thermometers, multiple drawers reading the outputs from those instruments.
That sounds like too much redundancy.
Either
you can
of-
make it so much more compact if you don't have so much
of
redundancy.
that. Oh no, yeah, there was literally a whole. They just call it instrumentation. It was a whole like, imagine like 42U rack style stuff,
Yeah.
except much more durable, right? And water resistant. Like you can splash seawater on the face of them, and all the knobs and switches were all like
Yeah.
water sealed, right? But like just drawers and drawers and drawers of stuff. Just like, okay, here's the cold temperature coming into the reactor. But there's 4 of them. And here's the hot temperature leaving the reactor. Oh, but that's 4 of those.
Nice.
Yeah.
Shallots.
It's just
Yeah. Oh shit. Weren't we supposed to have that ad tonight?
Oops.
Okay.
Oops.
Yeah.
Oh, we had an ad. F it,
Apparently
do it in
not.
post.
Yeah, and you don't
I
need all
don't
that
see
stuff.
an ad.
The FBI is not going to show up at your house after listening to this.
That's just me.
Come on, these you know, the bases for naval nukes are damn near 70 years old now. So,
Oh, yeah.
when was the Nautilus launched? 53? 55?
Nautilus?
Huh.
Yeah, it was a long ass time ago.
Weird.
See, I love how Ryan got up and left and said he's not in the after show, and then he just starts talking.
Nobody else can hear him. He's talking from over there.
Yeah, I know.
I can hear you, Ryan.
Launched 54.
Yep. And then Rickover designed a reactor plant that was so large for a submarine that's what they made the Trident submarine platform based on. Basically, Rickover designed the plant first. They're like, holy crap, what are we going to fit on a submarine that could be this big? And they're like, well, we fit like 24 nuclear missiles.
Missile.
Really
You
big
work
ones.
on the
My
A10
God,
as
Johnson,
well.
you've got it.
Fit a whole bunch of nuclear missiles, and some torpedoes, and some other stuff.
I mean, what vehicle do you not design around a power plant?
Well, yeah, but it's
The
just like
Warthog?
this was, you know,
That's true. The Warthog is designed around
Yeah, I
power.
already asked if he was involved in the A10.
it's like they made
Yeah.
the plant that like if you actually, I'm fortunate that I was able to actually like walk around this damn thing, like doing maintenance on it and stuff when it was shut down. But like, you can't.
That's why you glow a little bit, huh?
It's when it was off, Ken. When it was off.
Is it ever really off?
Everything was
You're right. It's not ever really off, but it's off enough where it's safe to walk around and or sit on if you're bored.
It's where it's safe enough that it's to the point where the DoD has determined it's safe enough for you to walk around on it.
Our limits are pretty. They're pretty
I have
high.
different limits.
Yeah. No, but it's like they could not make for what's there, they could not make the surroundings any smaller. Like you just can't physically get it in there. Right? They had to redesign boilers so that they worked differently. So that they could fit within the space.
I think boilers just sort of work one way, don't they?
No.
Add heat, boil water.
But the design of where the tubes are usually going, usually boilers are long, tall things.
Right.
They're like, well, no, we need like the boiler, the heat exchanger section. We can't have it.
Boilers
tall.
are a series of tubes?
Yes.
Yep.
Literally a series of tubes.
I'm very confused now.
No packet interchange here for you.
It's like a big sub.
You just dump stuff on.
You just dump stuff on.
Oh, it's in sync mode now.
Is it true
Ooh,
that there's a
5 to
secret
1,
sub
bottom
base
of the
near
ninth.
St. Louis? Why would there be a sub base near St. Louis?
You know, the muddy Mississippi.
Yeah, it's like there's kind of a small river running right by it.
It's so secret that like that it's not there. It's a hell of a secret.
It's like the
That's a really bad-
It's like the
not that
missile
deep.
silo under the putting green at the White House.
Okay, so here's the thing.
Truman putting green.
You're not going to have a submarine
about
base in a place where there's not a continental shelf nearby. Like, that's where they put them. Put them where you can go a minimum amount of distance before you can dive. Right? And as it was, I was in Georgia, and we would still be like, you're talking like 6 or 8 hours worth of just driving full speed almost on the surface to get to the point where you can submerge safely. Which sucked, especially if it was windy. Because, you know,
What
you're on
was the
surface.
cruising speed on the surface? Because it's in the continental shelf
It's
out of
about,
Georgia is like
24 knots.
Cruising
Surface?
speed on the surface? Yeah, you're limited
Yeah, I
by
guess-
like the cavitation. You can only push yourself so quickly because the water pressure is not high enough to push yourself any harder.
Hmm.
So the propeller just
ain't
shits
got
out a
no
bunch
bite.
of bubbles. Yeah.
Hmm.
Which is bad for it because it like will eventually
It wears away the metal.
Yeah, it wears away the metal. So you try not to You try not to do that all the time.
Try not to break the screw.
Yeah, don't break the screw. Breaking the screw is bad. There was one time
a little expensive to replace.
There was one time we left, had to turn around, come back, and have the divers check the screw. And we're pretty sure they accidentally left a tank strapped to the screw. And Alex can laugh a lot because he's a diver, right? No, it literally as soon as we it felt a little weird on the surface, like something was a little off balance. And then when we dove, and then we tried to go faster, it was literally like, you know, like the spin cycle of a washing machine when it's off balance and the washing machine tries to like leave the floor, right? Like the whole engine room of the submarine was like doing this, and we're like, something is freaking wrong here. What the hell is wrong? We had to turn around, and like literally, like it's an extra day worth of just back and forth, right? Turn around, drive all the way back. Divers went down and checked, air quotes, came back up. I'd really like to know if they came up with an extra tank or not. But
No,
they said,
I had that stage bottle the entire time.
They saw nothing. There was absolutely nothing. And then we stayed there for an extra day trying to figure out what else the something was, because the divers said there was nothing. We finally gave up, shrugged our shoulders, and left. And somehow, miraculously, the problem was gone. Right? Yeah, no. I'm sorry. You don't get from a freaking, whatever, 80,000 tons doing a freaking Mississippi Shake or whatever, down to
Harlem Shake.
Yeah, Harlem Shake, and then all of a sudden the problem's gone, and the only person that looked at anywhere on the sub was like the divers, probably the same people that removed their heavy thing from the screw.
But pay no attention to this mangled tank on the side.
Yeah, I'm sure whatever they pulled up was not happy afterwards. It's so funny.
You probably went and sat on the bearings of the shaft and enjoyed the ride, didn't you?
I have a really awesome picture. No. There's no sitting on that when that thing's trucking.
It will rustle your jimmies a bit.
But there's there's halfway night, like kind of a party thing on the submarine. They make Pinewood Derby cars and like put a 20-degree up angle on the sub, and like we do downhill Pinewood Derby races down the missile compartment and stuff like that. So it's just like
crazy.
and like they bust out the box of lobster that they brought with them. Like the cooks managed to sneak onto the sub and stuff. So we have like a really awesome kick-ass meal, like one night halfway. It's like a halfway point. And every halfway point on pretty much every ballistic missile sub, somebody will hide the executive officer's door. They will remove it and hide it when he's not looking. And then it's usually like a joke, because then the XO like can't get any privacy in his room, because like everybody that walks by doesn't got a freaking door to close, right? So at one point, a executive officer's stateroom door was taped to the shaft.
That's a lot of tape.
That's a lot of tape. And also the XO looks really inquisitive when he's down there and finally finds his door, and there it is spinning around the freaking shaft of the submarine. It's not like you're gonna,
RPM or whatever.
Yeah, but I have this really cool picture where we're in the dry dock, and like there's actually a periodic maintenance to replace the shaft.
Mm.
Because you put so much stress on it, it's only rated for a certain amount of lifetime. It actually has an endurance rating on the shaft, right? Because you're talking like millions of foot-pounds on this thing, right?
Well, isn't it on the aircraft carriers that the shaft is so long, they have to make the metal a little softer because it may have 1.5 twists in it.
No, it's
where the steam turbines are to the screw.
This applies to even like auto mechanics. Like the drive shaft, that's a longer drive shaft on most cars, is hollow, and usually even sand filled for balancing. If it's a longer drive shaft.
Most drive shafts are hollow.
No, like the driver's side of a front wheel drive car's drive shaft.
Oh, you're talking about front wheel drive. That's heresy.
Transaxle drive shaft. So like the short one will be solid, but then the longer one will be hollow. right?
Right.
Anyway, so that they do that for flexing, so that you're not breaking stuff, and it's the same thing like any shaft, aircraft carrier shafts, submarine shafts. But like, so periodically you have to change out the shaft. So the sub goes into dry dock. All these cranes, there's like really heavy duty cranes. They need both of them at the same time to support the weight of this thing, and they like disconnect everything, and they actually pull the shaft out, and the shaft goes all the way through like the rear main ballast tanks on the sub. It's a long ass, it's like 40 or 50 feet or something worth of a shaft. Yeah. So they pull it out all the way out of this thing, and I have this, and then they have like a scaffold there where the workers would, were unbolting like the screw off and all this other stuff, and it's like a scaffolding that raises up to the level of like the opening, like when the shaft is gone, right? So I have a picture down the entire hollow opening all the way through all the ballast tanks, from the engine room all the way out. Just all you see is just like a bulkhead with like a big ass flange, which was like the seal, and all you see is a little hole at the end, and then there's a shipyard worker guy just standing at the top of the scaffolding with like his vest on and stuff, and this is just like standing at the end of the opening.
So is he standing at the end? Is it the caption is "Take it all"?
I was figuring there's gonna be a your mama joke somewhere along here, but I was like,
no.
Take it all.
But I will tell you that the last likely thing that shipyard worker would ever expect, standing alone in the dry dock on top of a very tall scaffolding in the middle of the night where nobody else is around, he would not expect somebody to appear behind him and say boo. If you were, say, brave enough to crawl/walk down the opening and make it to the end of the tube and just kind of like surprise the hell out of the shipyard worker who almost fell off the scaffold.
Murder a guy.
Almost murdered a guy.
You're a bad man.
Yeah.
Hey, you get bored in the middle of the night. And it was a roving watch. I'm supposed to rove and make sure everything is.
So you went and played with a shaft.
So I went down the tube. Hollow shaft tube.
Well, looks like the Astros won. Phil is going to be happy.
Ryan, the Astros win.
The Astros won. 5-1.
When are we going to see more 4 terabyte SSDs? The market
I don't know.
is just not. People just don't want to buy them. You can buy a 850 Evo 4 terabyte, and there's like a Micron something 100. What was that Micron SSD that was like 4 terabytes? It was dirt cheap. It's like a 2100 or something.
Maybe
It was a SATA SSD. It was 4 terabytes for pretty cheap.
I don't know.
They're not 10 cents a gig. Not yet. I don't think that wasn't at Max 300. That was 4 terabytes.
All right, guys, I gotta fall down, but you have fun.
All right.
We'll talk to you
Yeah, I'm
later.
leaving.
Thanks for
Seeing
watching.
y'all.
Y'all have a good one.
Good night.